evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Political Theater, everybody. Hope you guys had a great holiday. It was a very interesting holiday. We got a bunch of great Christmas gifts, including a insane story coming out of Minnesota. We have land pirates in the United States. That's right, land pirates, actual Minnesota land pirates, which apparently are not just in Minnesota, but apparently everywhere. Apparently we have land pirates in every state. Any place that any place that has Somalian immigrants is apparently infested to the brim with pirates of all sorts of different sorts and persuasions, which has resulted in, billions of dollars worth of fraud. Now, of course, some of this stuff has already been known for the past. There's already been major investigations that have been going into the Minnesota fraud that's been going on for years. This is the Feeding Our Future scandal, apparently, that came out a couple years ago. But the fraud itself has managed to explode out onto a massive scale now with Nick Shirley's video, which I think now, and last time I looked at it, it had 110 million views, which is, astonishing, really. It was averaging something along the lines of 2 million views an hour for a short period of time, and it's just continued to go and go and go. So it looks like we're going to continue to see more exposure on this, which is good because it needs to be exposed. Now, I don't want to get Pam Bondi and her, her DOJ aren't going to get off the hook here, guys, because what they're claiming right now, they're claiming that this is somehow some version of an investigation that they're claiming. Oh, there's a bunch of indictments, guys. The indictments that they're talking about, these are old. These are old indictments. Okay, these are the indictments from the Biden administration. This is the previous administration that had this stuff going. So right now, what you're looking at, the indictments they're talking about, those are old indictments. So what all the stuff that they're showing now, don't let them fool you and claim that they have, somehow they're in the middle of this. Oh yeah, they're on top of this. No. Now, what they have been doing, and which is new, which is actually good, is that they've actually been showing up. They've been actually going to the places that the previous administration, not the previous administration, that Shirley had went to, and they're actually showing those places. That's good. Okay, so that's new stuff. They need to be bringing that stuff forward. But the claim that that our current DOJ is all over this, I really didn't like what Pam Bondi's statement was. Honestly, I'm not a fan of Pam Bondi at all. I think she needs to be fired. What she was talking about just a few minutes ago, she released some statement saying, politicians buckle up. Pam, just be quiet, please. Okay, Pam, you need to stop. I'm not a huge fan of you. You just go back. Someone needs to get rid of Pam. She has not done a great job as Attorney General, and I don't think she has the cojones to do what needs to be done. But anyway, so we can get into this. The land pirates in Minnesota. So the amount of fraud that was exposed just by Nick Shirley, which, by the way, all he really did, and this has got to be, this is as simple as he went to the physical addresses of the places that the fraud might have been at. Okay, that's all he did. It's not like this is some earth-shattering idea that he did. He had hired a security team, and he showed up, and he just knocked on the door of these places, and some of them, wasn't even anybody there in the first place. There was nobody even present at the locations, which is astonishing. $110 million worth of fraud, which is now equivalent to the amount of views that thing has. The legacy media completely ignored it, by the way. They didn't even act like it was happening. They completely ignored it, pretended it wasn't even a thing, just decided that they were going to try and, plug their ears and act like it wasn't happening. My favorite was CBS. CBS put out this statement. They said, oh, look, you can read all about our Minnesota fraud reporting over here. Oh, God. It's such a joke. They didn't do anything. They haven't reported on anything. The only story that they talked about was something 20 days ago, they had some report of fraud in Minnesota, but they have got nothing on the news story. They got nothing on everything that Nick Shirley just released. And good on him. Shirley, by the way, his account has just blown up. I think it went from 200-something thousand subscribers or followers on X to now he's got almost 800,000. So he's gained, 600,000 subscribers in just a couple days, which is amazing. He deserves it. He really does do the work. He's on the ground actually doing the reporting that, I think, honestly, I would say that what Nick Shirley did is better journalism than the mainstream media has done in 20 years, to put it lightly. I think that's the best way to describe it. I think he's done more work in just the past week or so than, the mainstream media has done or the legacy media has done in 20 years. I think that's accurate. I don't think they have any real interest in covering these stories. The fact that this thing blew up so much is kind of incredible because there's local media reports that have been talking about this stuff for a while now. They've been all over it. I mean, they've been saying that look at the fraud. This is all over the place. But no one has done what Nick Shirley did, which is show up at these addresses and prove, hey, where are these people at? Where's the money going? And the fact that people were just, just the sheer image alone of Quality Leering Center. Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen that yet, you need to go look at it. The image and the video of him walking up to this place there's nothing there. It's a desolate parking lot, and it's got just a shitty sign above the door that says Quality Leering Center. They didn't even spell it right. Now, that's what really made this story blow up, by the way. He kind of tapped into a number of different trending items and combined them all into one story and then provided a ridiculous example, which just made it blow up. I mean, it just absolutely went viral. There is no way that anybody, I mean, if there is, the new account that they have on X, Certified Bangers, if that's not a certified banger, I don't know what is. I mean, it's, he had 110 million views in essentially 3 days. So that story now has eclipsed anything from the mainstream media. The mainstream media, I assume now they're being forced to cover it. I know Fox has been talking about it, but that's it. I haven't seen a single thing out of CNN, nothing out of any of the other major networks, and I just assume they're going to hope this all goes away. But it's not going to go away, because now what's really happened, what's the interesting part about this is that what Shirley did. Now, there's a number of us out here who have been looking at some of these investigations after, there was the whistleblower investigations that came out a couple weeks ago from the Minnesota whistleblower group saying that, Tim Walz has been threatening them. They've been trying to expose fraud in the DHS system for years. So this is another story that now that Shirley's blown this up, I was already working on going into Columbus, Ohio. So Ohio is something that obviously I was focused on because I'm here. So I was going to be looking into these some of these places, and I wasn't specifically focusing on the Somali aspect of it. But now, obviously, it's going to take another focus for me. And people have been sending me stuff endlessly. There is so much to this, guys. There's millions of dollars worth of fraud. Just in the couple of places I've looked at, I've already found one company that has had something like $20 million. And they, it looks like their storefront isn't a storefront at all. It doesn't even have the physical address is a multi-tenant building where it looks like the front of it's a halal, bagel shop. And the backside of it is a dojo of some kind. So it's not even a real building. But they've got 50 other locations just like it. And this is going to be everywhere. And now that Nick Shirley has done this, there's going to be a million other journalists out here trying to find this word. There's not going to be a million. There's going to be probably 24 actual reporters that are going to be going out doing this stuff. The only thing I worry about now is a little bit with security. Now, he had a security detail, and I think I'm probably going to have a real security detail now. I was going to do it all on my own. But now with these people, there's no way they're not aware of that this is going to be coming. So now the security for these kind of investigations are going to be even more, more pertinent. There's going to have to be a lot more people that are paying attention to it. So coming in a couple weeks, for those who have been following this show and following me, know that I was telling everybody that the end of the year and coming into the beginning of the year, things are going to change for this show. Things are going to change for me. I'm going to be going into this essentially full time. I'm going to be doing on the ground out there investigations. And this is something that I was already planning on doing. But now things are going to change drastically because of this fraud stuff that's come out. This is going to blow up. I mean, there's no way to escape it now. I'm going to have to deal with real security stuff. I'm going to have to actually have real security teams with me while I go out for some of these things. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do any of that, but I don't think I can just show up and, hey, I'm here with a camera. I'll probably get shot. So, the idea is now we're going to actually have a team of people, which we're working on now. So coming into the beginning of the year, for the subscribers to this show and subscribers to me, if you guys have been following and you're actually subscribed on X or subscribed on Substack, you may have seen some of this stuff already. The changes that are going to be happening for this show are going to be a lot more on-the-ground journalism. Now, I'm still going to be in the studio some nights. I'll be here, but most of it's going to be traveling. So the space, for those who call into the space and know that that's the call-in for this show, the X space that everybody's allowed to come in and talk on, that'll still continue, but it'll probably only be nights that I'm in the studio. Now, coming next week, there's going to be a number of other things that will be happening. There'll be other people that will be joining the show. This studio will actually be used for a few people at the same time, so there will be a different version of this show. There'll be a number of other people that are going to be here present in the studio for that. So look forward to that, guys. That's coming next week. So that'll be January 5th is when we're going to start working on some of this stuff. And you'll see, the investigative stuff that we're working on, that's a whole different scenario. And as I've told people before, like I mentioned for the Dearborn stuff, none of this stuff is going to come out until we're done with it. So you're not going to see when I go somewhere, or that's not going to be posted until it's finished. And that's for security purposes. But, we'll talk about all that as we get into the beginning of the year. Make sure you're subscribed on WCDispatch.com. If you guys are new to the show, thank you guys for being here. My name is Walter Kurt. This is the Political Theater. This is a weeknight show, 9 p.m. to 11:30, usually, roughly something along those lines. If you want to call into the show, go to X.com, go to @WCDispatch, and you can join the show via the space. We have an X space that runs and simulcasts along with the show, along with all the other platforms that we're on. But thank you guys for being here tonight. So obviously, the number one story that anybody's even remotely talking about. In fact, no one's even talking about anything else. The only thing that you can see when you go on your feed is just more Minnesota fraud stuff. And it is blown so far out of, I mean, I wouldn't say out of proportion. It needed to be. It is proportional to how bad the fraud is, honestly. So it's not out of proportion, but the amount of the coverage of it, it's the only thing you can see when you go onto X right now, essentially. It is everywhere. It is in every single feed. It is in every single story. That's all people are talking about. And now people are starting to go into the peripherals of it, which is where, what I get into comes in, because what we were looking at is stuff over for the SNAP benefits. The SNAP benefits is another side of this, and it doesn't just limit to the Somali community. Okay, that's one thing I think people need to realize. It's not just the Somalian community. Essentially, all of the third world groups that we brought here are all engaged in some form of fraud. All of them are. It's not some of them. It's not a couple of them. It's like all of them. Okay. The amount of fraud that you may have seen, there was one story that came out a couple weeks ago about the Haitian community up there in the Northeast. They found a couple $1 million worth of SNAP fraud there. That stuff is very widespread. And that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be getting into over the next couple weeks on this show. From me specifically, you're going to be seeing some investigative reporting coming out of there. You're going to be coming out of most of Ohio. I'm going to be covering that quickly, and then I'll be moving out of the state and moving into other places. And that'll be all live coverage. And the show itself I'm going to be broadcasting from while I'm traveling, so that it'll continue. The video version will. The X Space, I'm probably going to have to come up with another version of the X Space, at least while I'm traveling, because that'll be pretty consistent coming up here pretty soon. But anyway, we'll get into the rest of that. So obviously, the one thing I will say we need to do, I think anybody that's covering this, the Minnesota or the Somalian pirates, I think everyone needs to go out and buy a pirate hat and an eye patch, because we are indeed hunting land pirates. So, I mean, I think that's necessary at this point. You need to have, you gotta look the part. If you're going to blend into the community, you really need to make sure that you do the part. Go get a sword, do the whole bit, because how else are you going to blend in? I mean, these are true pirates that are living on our shores, apparently. So, the number one occupation in Somalia is pirate. So, we need to make sure we understand that. So the only way you'll be able to fit in is if you show up with the eye patch and L. Now, and if anybody shows up and actually tries to get video of entering one of these like daycare centers or something in a captain's hat and an eye patch, you're going to win. Okay. I mean, I don't know how else to describe that. That's going to be hysterical, but I can't wait to see it. I'm looking forward to it. I might even do it. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure I can rock a pirate hat, but we'll see. It might be something we have to do anyway, just for effect. But looking forward to this, guys. This year is going to be, there needs to be serious accountability for this stuff. And that's why I wanted to bring up Pam Bondi's stuff. Pam Bondi is sitting there just saying, oh, we've got 98 prosecutions and all these indictments. Those are old. That's from the previous investigations. And none of that's talking about any of the new stuff that's come out. That's stuff that was happening underneath the Biden administration. And I think it's this point, it's safe to assume, at least for me, I'm going to assume that the Biden administration, what they were really doing is, sure, they were prosecuting it, but just the fact that they weren't showing up, not even going to the physical addresses of these places like Shirley did, that tells me that they weren't actually looking. And I think it's pretty clear now. If you guys have looked at some of the other stuff that's been coming out alongside of this reporting, there has been proof now that these Somalian daycare centers are donating directly to political campaigns. What a shock. Oh, wow. That's who could have guessed that? No way. So that's something that's been happening. They've been going through, and now I've got a number of them, and I actually listed a couple of them earlier. I had somebody else had found this, and they published it, and I went and double-checked it myself. So there's a candidate in Ohio. So this is in Columbus, Ohio. The Somalian rep there, happens to have had a bunch of donations directly from, the Somalian daycares in the local area. What a shock. So that's how it works. So they get money out of Medicaid, and then they take your tax dollars and then they fund their political candidates with it, which then I assume help them in their fraud even further. The real question is going to become who exactly on the inside of these administrations is part of this, because there's no way they're doing it alone. Okay, there's no way there's no way this is being done just by the external people. Okay, they have to have help inside the system somehow. And I've already got a list of names and people that I'm going to be looking into, and that's going to be coming out, eventually here in the next couple weeks. I'll be talking about some of this stuff that I've been working on. But all of this fraud together, if there's not real accountability for this, and I've been talking about this, anybody who watches this show, anybody who listens to this show knows that I've been talking about this quite literally for months. Okay. If there is not serious accountability for the corrupt actions of the previous administration, we're going to lose. There's no question about it. You don't have accountability. You don't actually manage to put people in prison. And I'm talking, you can't just be random people. Okay. It needs to be someone that is significant. You need to prosecute politicians. Ilhan Omar should be deported at this point. Okay, I mean, she went from being worth nothing to being worth $30 million in just a couple years, and magically we find all these billions of dollars of fraud in Minnesota. We do what do we? Well, they're not related? Really? Is that what we're going to try and pretend here? You know, when you start looking at this stuff, it's very clear that part of the reason for this is that there's not been a lot of action on it, is that it's on both sides of the aisle, and it is. In fact, a bunch of these places that I've been looking at, if you guys have looked at, there's the CEO of Gab. If you guys are familiar with Gab, it's another social media website. It kind of came out in the middle of the super censorship era. Gab became a free speech hub at some point during that. Well, the CEO of Gab released something called daycaredata.com, and you can actually go state by state and see how much taxpayer dollars has been going into these daycare centers and healthcare centers and all these different places. You can go state by state. Data Republican's working on a database right now where she's going to release a bunch of names here coming out here very shortly. I think she said that even might come out tonight, or it's either tonight or tomorrow morning. So keep an eye on her account too. That's going to be big. This stuff, once you start really seeing how expansive it is, though, I found it being linked directly to the National Republican Committee. I found it directly linked to the DNC. It is everywhere. It's not just one side of the aisle. It is both sides of the aisle, and that's why there's no real action on it, or why no real action has been happening in the past, because everybody's involved, apparently. Everybody is stealing tax dollars except you, because you're paying it. It's your money. They're just taking it from you and giving it to, I don't know, their own political campaigns, apparently. There's one that I found just earlier today. I think I posted it. I'll pull it up on the screen here so people can see what I'm talking about. There's an account that's been building out a database. I think his name is like Beaver or something. It's, some goon name on X, of course. But apparently he found one that directly donated out of their 10% in their PPP loan, donated directly to the Republican House Committee. That's interesting. I mean, that's interesting. So 10% of their $250,000 loan donated directly to the Republican House Committee, or the House Republican Committee. That's what it says. So, I mean, does anybody believe that this is all just like, oh, no, whoops? No, of course it isn't. This is all obviously a well-fettered out grift that everybody has figured out, and they figured out how to pump it back into their political campaigns. And this is the same thing as the USAID stuff. This is the same thing. It turns out that part of the reason you have so many people you don't like in office is because they've been getting your own tax dollars to fund their political campaigns. That's what it's really been going on. That's what's really been happening. And, it's difficult to believe until you start seeing, the direct financial tracking of it, right? Just a random daycare center is donating thousands of dollars to the political candidate in the area. I mean, that's not why on earth would you get a loan and then donate that loan to any political organization? I thought the purpose of your loan is to keep your business afloat. That's what a PPP loan was supposed to be for. This is the COVID loans, by the way, if you're not familiar with the PPP loans. That's what they were for. So, just the fact that all of this has just continued endlessly. And now we're all getting to see it. Now you understand why Elon Musk, when he was going in there with Doge, why they were so viscerally hatred of him. I mean, why they had people outside of every single Tesla dealership in the entire country, why they had protesters they were paying those protesters to show up outside of those places, why they were pressuring his business, everything about him, because clearly Musk was actually looking at the fraud. That's what was really happening. Elon Musk actually looked at the fraud. He actually looked at it. He actually was looking into it. He was going to find more of it, and they couldn't have him stay. So they killed Doge, they killed his role in Doge, because they couldn't do it. I mean, they pressured him out. That's what the entire purpose of what they did was. That's the only reason they did that. So now that this is kind of expanded, though, I don't think they can hide it anymore. If you've got 1,000 people like Nick Shirley that are going to go around, and people like me that are going to go around and start looking at this stuff, you can't hide it anymore. You can't take all of us down. I mean, what's the intention? You're going to threaten every single journalist in the country that wants to go out and see if they can find a story? That's not going to work. So it's now become decentralized. The decentralized version of the media is our real asset in this scenario, because until this point happens, until this point, the mainstream media has no interest in this, apparently. They don't have any interest in covering it. They don't have any interest in talking about it. They're still not talking about it, which is baffling to me. They're going to try and act like it's not happening. Well, it is happening. And the reality is, now that there's a bunch of independent journalists out here, you're not going to be able to stop them. If you've got enough brave people that are willing to go out and actually hit the ground, go find this stuff, go tear it up and actually look for it, they're going to find it. And the question is, are we actually going to get accountability? Because if we don't, guys, anybody that believes that the Republicans will ever win ever again if we don't have real accountability for the corrupt actions. We'll never win ever again. You know, we'll lose the midterms. Trump will be impeached immediately. And anybody, and I do mean anybody, that actually has a loud voice and talks about this sort of stuff, they're going to throw us in prison. So, there's some people that act like, oh, that won't happen. Sure. Yeah. They prosecuted every single person they possibly could that was even tangentially related to January 6th. They threw 70-year-old grandmothers in prison. They were kicking down the doors of 80-something-year-old dudes, rushing their entire houses with SWAT teams. You think they're not going to come after you? You're crazy. So I tell everybody what I've been trying to focus on is us winning the midterms, and that needs to happen. But the other thing is, this exposure of the fraud, if it's really on both sides to the level that it is, then it needs to be exposed everywhere. It needs to be exposed everywhere. All of these people need to be shamed. They all need to be thrown out of office. If you're related to anything to do with this fraud on any level, you need to be removed. And if it takes all of us, if we got to completely shift the midterms around and we got to move a whole bunch of people into the primaries, so be it. There's no real choice. We either have a country or we don't. So that's where we're at now. If we don't actually figure this out and actually don't have real accountability for this stuff, I don't know what we do, because we'll lose the midterms for sure if that happens. But, these people that we have in charge right now, they don't seem to have much interest in going after the accountability that we're asking for. I mean, you would think that this is the most important issue. I've said it's the most important issue the entire time. If you don't have accountability for any of this stuff, nothing matters. Who cares? Who cares what you do? Who cares what you do if you don't have any accountability for any of the actions of the previous administration? Because then nothing matters, really. Because, if apparently you can just remove a president when you don't like him. The FBI can. They don't like him, so they'll open a counterintelligence operation and get rid of him. Well, that stuff's got to stop. That's got to stop. We got to move on with our lives. We actually need to have accountability. It is not about revenge and retribution. And for those who watched the Roger Stone speech at AmFest, this is what he said. It's not about revenge and retribution. It's about justice. We need to have a standard of justice in this country that is equal for everybody. And if it's not equal for everybody, we don't have a country. And that's just the end of it. And until we actually figure this out, there's nothing else to be said on it. We can keep exposing it. And the journalists out here, the only thing we can do, the only thing people like me can do, we can expose more fraud. We can expose more waste. We can expose more people into more politicians. We can do that. But if there's nothing that happens, I don't know what to do. There's some of these judges up here, apparently they're throwing out unanimous jury verdicts. How do you even deal with that? What do you do with that? You got to impeach the judge. Well, that whole area is not going to impeach the judge, so what do? There has to be some sort of check on these people. The courts themselves are clearly out of control. The entire deep state apparatus has no interest in actually doing this. It appears to me that I don't even know what the FBI was doing for years, apparently. I mean, if they weren't actually taking care of this fraud, they weren't actually looking into any of this stuff, I have no idea what they were doing. I've got no clue. So the only option we have is to keep going and keep trying to expose it. But if they don't actually have any action on this, then guys, we need to completely rethink how we're going to do anything in this future in this country. Because if the corrupt actions aren't taken care of, nothing matters for us on the little guys are all going to get screwed in the end on that, because apparently nothing that we do matters. So something has to change. And the Trump administration, if Trump wants to have any legacy at all, I hope he gets that message. I hope he gets that message that there must be something done. There has to be, because he'll have zero legacy if he doesn't. He won't. If he'll just be yet another cog in the wheel that failed to actually get anything done, failed to actually hold anybody accountability, held any of the corrupt officials accountable. None of that stuff matters if we don't actually get it. None of it does. All right, guys, this is the Political Theater. I'm Walter Kerr. Thank you guys for being here this evening. If you guys would like to join the show, you guys are welcome to come up here and speak now. You can come up on the X space now. I've also got a friend of mine who's actually going to be joining the show here shortly. His name is Chris Marino. You guys know him on here. He's been on the show, but he's going to join the live video version of the show tonight. But make sure you guys share the link out. If you guys are on X, make sure you guys leave a comment down below. I do read the comments, but make sure you guys tell me what you think about the show. Tell me what you guys want to be looking into. If you guys have any interest in what you guys think may be worth investigating, you guys can always send it to me. So make sure you guys leave a comment below, and you can always request to come up on stage, and I'll bring you up now. Looks like we already have one request, so I'll bring you up. Let's see here. Oh, it's Chief. What is happening, Chief? How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Walter? I was listening to your lead in there, and I have so many thoughts on this, but let me go to just my roots here. I was part of a $3 billion organization, almost $4 billion organization in the LA County Sheriff's Department, and I worked with LA Metro, which was about a $5 billion organization. There's no way that the people in the state of Minnesota at every level didn't know this was happening. There's no way. If you have good systems and controls in place, and I'm confident at one point they did, you have to ignore those systems and control for this kind of corruption to happen. You have to ignore the whistleblowers because if you think about it, like on the sheriff's department, when you were a captain, a commander, a chief, at each level you saw different budget numbers, right? And you see anomalies. Now I heard that one of the numbers I heard out of Minnesota was that they had a 40% increase in SNAP benefits. Now that is what they call an anomaly when you're looking at a multi-year budget. When you look at a 10-year budget, why does it go up 40%? That means there's corruption. That's an alarm bell. And that stuff happens in large multi-billion-dollar organizations every day. They have systems and controls. They'll you know you can't you can't steal $10,000 in some of these organizations without getting caught. But billions, that means that there's complicity on the part of the politicians at the top, and that's where because I hear a lot of people talk about, well, this is just it's racist. You're going after Somalia. That's not the issue. The Somalis are an important part of this, but that isn't the primary issue. The primary issue is who knew, when did they know it, and why didn't they do anything at the state and local level? Because here's the other thing most people don't understand. When you look at these federal programs, the federal programs, they give money to the state. The state then gives money to the counties to help manage it. So when you have something like Hennepin County, which is a large county, 'cause I hear a lot of people talk about,
Sorry, then go ahead.
and yeah, when you have that, that means the people at the county level knows what's going on. And they're seeing anomalies, and as well as people at the state level. So that means a lot of people were involved, a lot of people knew, and a lot of people turned a blind eye to this. This is why there has to be prosecutions. And for me, I know you talked about Republicans and Democrats, but I want to remind people the EPA funds. We were getting ripped off on EPA funds, and it seems to be endemic in the Democratic Party. You look at Act Blue. Yeah, Act Blue had a lot of corruption, and the Republican side did, but the scale was not even close.
Right.
The scale was not even close. The Democrats they were looting the Treasury both with EPA funds, and now it appears that state and local governments and blue states were also looting the Treasury using all of these different programs. It's just outrageous and mind-boggling to me. And I'm thinking of all those bureaucrats along the way who probably said something and got threatened. Their careers got threatened. They got pushed aside. Because I was one of those guys who said, "Hey, wait, why are we doing this?" That was my experience in nothing like this, but I was the guy who raised my hand. I can imagine all these good people along the way in Minnesota raising their hands and getting slapped down.
Well, that's the deal, right? I mean, the deal is that, Tim Walz. Is Tim Walz retarded, or is Tim Walz a friggin' capo? That's the question at this point, right? So, you've got politicians being assassinated in Minnesota, okay? You've got billions of dollars worth of fraud. Is he in on it, or is he an idiot? Those are your two options, okay? And that's the point that I've been looking at. And you start to look at some of the stuff that's happening in Minnesota. For those who also there's another bit on this story that's other people are, as this has been fanning out, it's been expanding rapidly. If you look at some of the voting issues that have been going on in Minnesota, the voting issues are unbelievable. Scott Presser pointed this out. He said, did you know that if you have one person, with a ID in Minnesota, you can then vouch for 8 other people without IDs for them to all vote? What? And by the way, Minnesota also offers same-day voting registration. You can register to vote and vote within the same day at the same location. So if you have one person that you can register to vote and then they can vouch for 8 other people without IDs, sounds like an easy way to get fraud to me. And if you go look at some of these margins on how much they were starting to win by in Minnesota, that explains kind of the whole game to me. I think this fraud is directly to the top of the administration in Minnesota. And I think it's not just in Minnesota, obviously. It's going to be everywhere. Anywhere where there's these type of programs, I think you're going to see it everywhere. Every single one of them is going to have this. They're all going to have this same sort of fraud. They're all going to have a very similar setup. And again, I think it's going to go directly into the complicity of the administrations in those areas. I don't think there's any question about it anymore. It used to be, maybe there was some, question on whether or not people knew about it. Not at this scale. Not at this scale. When you start looking at hundreds of millions of dollars worth of fraud, that would have been noticed. It would have been noticed, and it's obviously been swept under the rug. And you can also hear directly from the Minnesota whistleblowers saying that they have been threatened. They have been threatened multiple different times. And it appears that the media is only just assisting with that. Somalian community is under threat after exposure. Like, Let me wipe my tears for the Minnesota fraud, that the poor Somalian community that's been robbing them blind. This is unbelievable to me. We've imported, essentially millions of pirates into our country, and we wonder why they're stealing from us. Shocker. I mean, it is insane. But you are right, Chief. There is no way that this is not. It has some sort of form of complicity up at the top. There's no question anymore.
And then there's the refusal of them to make adjustments and changes. It's one thing for it to start, but then for you to turn a blind eye to it. And this is what I've heard: 100,000 Somalis that voted as a voting bloc were very powerful in Minneapolis, and so they turned a blind eye to this, which is crazy. But I just want to link it to California. So California, we're looking at I think it was 38 billion lost. Just follow me on this one. 38 billion lost in unemployment funds, right? This was a few years back. They're talking about it now. But the people who did most of the corruption were inmates in the California Department of Corrections. So think about that. The governor controls the Department of Corrections, and those people are ripping off the unemployment funds, a system he also controls. And they still haven't fixed it, which is what the recent report that came out in California, the auditor controller said, we have 7 departments that are at risk because of some threats to budgetary issues, and that's one of them. And what he said is they haven't fixed the things that are broken in the program. So we lost billions, and they still haven't fixed those programs, as well as other programs. So it's like, you have to start voting on competency here. Let's say they're not corrupt, but they are absolutely incompetent, and the fact that they don't fix it applies to me corruption, because they know who's getting it, and those people are turning around and writing checks to them. So I mean, and that's the thing that's going on in California, is they won't fix the problems they have. And their solution in California, a billionaire's tax. Well, let's not. If you think about it, if you got a $2 billion fund and you got a 10% error rate, because I looked it up, they got 11% error rate on one of the programs that Trump says, hey, you have to pay for your SNAP programs unless you got an error rate at less than 6%. You have to pay 15% if you're over 10% error rate on your benefit program, right? Which is a $2 billion liability for the state of California, because they're at 11%. But this has been a problem forever, and they know it's been a problem, and they refuse to get it under the benchmark that Trump has. They're calling it a threat. But this is the problem for all of these programs. They know they have a problem, they don't fix it, and their solution, if you have $2 billion and it's $200 million shortfall, what do you do? What do you do? Well, what I would do is go, well, how do I shrink that? And then I save $400 million, right? Instead of, I get it down to 6%, I save $400 million. Then I don't have to tax billionaires, right? That's what we should be looking at. That's what we should be looking at, and we're not looking at it. And the crazy thing about it is that, I got my degree when I was in my mid-30s, and that was the whole reinventing government era. Remember that? Efficiency in government, you only get to spend so much time on welfare. That was a Democratic initiative in partnership with Republicans. They have tossed that away. They don't care about efficiency in government. They just care about raiding the Treasury. And that's what we have in California, and that's apparently what we have in Minnesota as well.
I mean, it's not just in those 2 states, like I said. This is everywhere, which is, again, why that this is wonder why the Democrats were so freaked out about the loss of the healthcare subsidies, right? The ACA credits that they were freaking out about. How much do you want to bet that much of that stuff was going directly into these programs? Again, and you start to see why. You start to see when you look at the FEC records and you start seeing a bunch of donations directly to campaigns. There's your reason. This is the grift, guys. This is the grift, and it goes across every single spectrum. It is not just some, it is across every single spectrum of the government. It is every single level of it. And you got to wonder, Elon Musk has been saying that he thinks it's upwards of 20% of our total budget is fraud. I mean, that's, hundreds of billions, essentially, is what that is, guys. That's an insane number. $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion would be 20%. So you got to realize that if this is the case and they really are defrauding it that much, I mean, imagine how much we could pay off our debt if we didn't have this much fraud. But, I also think about it as what Elon was talking about. Remember a few months ago, he was talking about, when there's these programs, he said, well, we're here to support the pandas. And he's like, well, where are the pandas? Show me a picture of the panda. And then they don't ask for money anymore. Well, apparently that works the exact same for frickin' kids in daycare. We're supporting 200 kids. Well, show me some kids. They don't have any of them. They don't have a single child at any of these places. It's just ridiculous. This is ridiculous stuff, and you wonder how this is possible, but it's possible because people aren't paying attention, and the other half of the people are complicit in it. Now, you're talking about competency. I don't think, the problem is that when you have incompetent people at the top, okay? The problem is when you have very incompetent people that sit at the top, there is a small minority of people in the world that will take advantage of incompetent people because they're incompetent. They know they're incompetent, so they'll take advantage of them. And those are usually the people that run everything. And the reality is, if you have a ton of incompetent people at the top and you have just a few that are, intentionally insidious, then you're going to get this stuff because everyone around them is an idiot. And that's what happens when you put stupid people in charge. When you have people that are idiots that can't read their own names, you can barely spell, and you put them in charge of very serious programs, that is a huge issue. When you put bartenders in charge of major congressional district, and when you put, any of these things, when you imagine if we had AOC as president. The woman was a bartender. She has no accomplishments in life outside of running for Congress and being a successful politician. That is her only accomplishment in life. She's never ran a major system ever. People were complaining about the idea of having, oh my God, Trump's got a bunch of billionaires in office. Oh no. Like, what? Guys, billionaires, if they're not corrupt people, these are the most successful, competent people in the world. Okay, you can't be a stupid billionaire. I don't care what anybody says. There's no way, zero possibility of you being a stupid billionaire. If you're a stupid billionaire, you're not a billionaire for very long. Okay, that's how that works. Even people that people dislike, people like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban's still a brilliant businessman. Why? Because he's a billionaire. You can't be a billionaire and not be a brilliant business person. It's not possible. Money is just like that. You don't just magically manage to make billions of dollars and keep billions of dollars. That's not how it works. You're either competent or you're not. And that's the only way it works. And anybody who's built their wealth from nothing knows that what kind of work it takes to be able to build a business to 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 employees. You know that you cannot be an idiot and do that. It's not possible. So, when everyone's, oh my God, the billionaires are working in the office. Well, thank God you got some of them in there. You need competent people running big, important systems, because if you have idiots in there, if you put AOC and Bernie Sanders in charge, these people don't know how to run anything. They don't know how to run anything. And what happens as a result of that is you get the bureaucracy running everything. And those people are so stupid that they do stuff like, the federal retirement program. Remember Elon Musk talked about this? The federal retirement program that was being run by people in a mine shaft that is 50 years old that no one has updated, and they're doing their retirement paperwork by hand. What? I mean, just why? Why are you doing? Well, we've always done it that way. That was how we were told how you do it. Like, oh my goodness, this is the world that you live in. You are so stupid that you never thought to update something so simple. We do have email now, turns out. I mean, these are the kind of people that when you tell them they have email, by the way, they go, well, I got to check my email. I got to go home to check my email. It's on my computer at home. I got to check it there. That's the only place it shows up to my house. That's the kind of people you're talking about. I mean, they have no clue. They have no idea how any of this stuff works. These people really believe that their email is only delivered to their physical address. They have no concept of what the internet is. That's true. I mean, I've met people like that. They actually believe that stuff. Those are the people that run the bureaucracy in this country. So, you've got people that are either incompetent or so stuck in their ways that they have no idea how the world works outside of the bureaucracy. And that's what the bureaucracy has been for, 60 years. So that's the problem when you have the idiots in charge. You've got the idiots in charge leaves the bureaucracy in charge, and they're not competent either, because all of the competent people that work for the government get hired out for private contracts and go make a bunch of money. I mean, it's very rare that you actually have people that are super intelligent that work within the government. It's not, most of the time they work for a couple of years and then they leave quickly, because why would they stay? They can make way more money doing other things. You're not supposed to go into the government for a career, but we've turned it into a career position, and that's how it works now. At least in this administration, this is something I pointed out when we first started getting into the administration, was that, there's a lot of people that have joined the administration, people like David Sachs, who is a very, very successful business guy, and he's a very successful crypto guy. He divested from all of that and went into this so he could think he could actually make change. That's the kind of people you want. Okay, you want people that step away from all of their business, put everything down to serve for a short period of time so they can make things better, then they go back to their jobs. That's how it's supposed to work. But instead, we've got people like, Mitch McConnell, who have been living in the Senate and are going to die on the Senate floor like Dianne Feinstein. I mean, this is real things. We had a congresswoman over the summer that someone went to her office and it was boarded up and no one was there, and they found her in an assisted living home, in a dementia home, and she was still a member of Congress. I mean, This is the kind of stuff we can't have anymore. Okay, we need to fix this stuff, and we need to get these people out.
Yeah, just one thought here is Tim Walz. They knew the Democrats knew about this, and they still selected him to be one of their standard bearers in a presidential election. This is why the Democrats own a lot of this. So why would you do that? You know he's got this liability. Why would you pick him to be your standard bearer? It's going to eventually come out, or not. I guess if
Well, I
he's
mean,
the
that's
vice
what's
president.
amazing about this, right, Chief? How did this
Yeah.
not come out during the presidential election? Tim Walz, part of massive fraud schemes across Minnesota that people were getting prosecuted at that time. I didn't even think about that. I wonder if that's the reason they were prosecuting people, because Tim Walz was in the state. That makes sense, actually. Yeah, that's probably why. So the only reason they started prosecuting people in Minnesota is because Tim Walz was running for vice president. So using him as the vice presidential candidate, they needed to make. Yep, that's actually the answer. So never mind, I answered my own question.
Well, it's just that the fact that I mean, think about what looking at. We're looking at Walsh was thinking about running for president. I think he's done now. But Gavin Newsom, with all the corruption we have here, they're not even shamed by the level of corruption they have going on, and they're going to run for president. And the party supports him. That's the part that bothers me. I think if we had a Republican that was doing all this stuff, I don't think he'd come close to get the guy. We'd probably bounce him out of the party.
Well, I
But
mean,
they embrace
and the
them as
deal
their
is,
leaders. This is the crazy thing about it.
this is the thing that needs to be changed. Okay, I mean, the Republicans. The one thing I'll say about the Democrats is they don't care who their leaders are at all. They would elect goldfish. Okay, like it means nothing to them. They don't care as long as they have the power. That's all that matters to them at the end of the day. So they're never going to go after their own people. That doesn't mean anything to them. They're never going to vote to expel their own members. They're never going to vote to go after their own members. They're never going to put them through committee meetings. They're not going to do any of that. Okay, they are 100% behind their people, no matter what it is, even if they're apparently part of billions of dollars worth of fraud in their own state. They don't care about any of that. I mean, like you said, in LA, look what's going on there. The high rail system, all of that stuff. That's just nothing but fraud. Nothing but fraud. I mean, it's all fraud. There's nothing that's actually managed to come forward from that. There's billions of dollars missing. If you start really doing a full audit of all these states, you're going to find all of the money. All of it's going to be there. We're going to find so much money, and it's going to be absurd. I got some new people up here. What is up, Rodney Grubb? I have never seen you before, so welcome to the show. How are you? Going once? Going twice? Nope. Okay, Henry, what's happening?
Hey, sir, how are you? Hey, on that note about the money that you just mentioned, one of the silver linings here, there's really two, and you already kind of touched on both of them, but I think I hope this becomes something that can be understood and seen, and then like a cultural pattern. What you said about people, like very competent people going in and setting the tone and creating a leadership culture of like establishing processes, right? Because kind of what you were talking about with regards to the emails, like antiquated ways of thinking, lack of the IQ or the incentive to like create more efficient processes and everything. The other thing, which is great, and I think the lack of the ability to attract talented people, like we have big balls and all these other people that Doge brought in. And Trump is now within his administration has brought in. Hopefully that creates a new pattern. At least when conservatives are elected, I think that's great. That's a huge thing. The other thing that's huge is what we talk about kind of in principle, but often historically haven't had like a great examples of being able to find out, or see this play out, is look at all the money that's being wasted and how much money doesn't have to be taxed and collected and everything, and all the inefficiencies and all of the other things. And I hate to say this because I hate seeing people lose jobs, but even in our state, Walt, we have, if you're a state employee, not only do you have the inherent backing of being a state employee, which is like makes you hyper disincentivized, but also job protection out the wazoo. But on top of that, you have a union in many cases, most cases, from
Yep.
what I understand. And this kind of just bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy, which kind of gives us the impression, oh, they're just incompetent. No, these are layers designed to just skim everything and to create jobs for people that that for otherwise. And so anyway, I think that's a huge thing, is the ability, like the notion that this should be spun into something, and not spun for whatever, but just parroted out, is that like there's tons of money that we don't need to be spending that could be going back to making things much more efficient, lighter, better for individuals. I think that's a huge win. if that becomes like known and understood.
I would hope so. I mean, you would think so. I mean, there's so many things to really go through. Back when everyone was tearing through government contracts, just to give you a reference on this, guys. I mean, I was looking through so many contracts and doing so many things at that period of time. I actually started getting cease and desist letters. Okay, so these people were not happy when that was going on. All right, they were not happy with what was going on. There's another point on here that I brought up. Someone was talking about the amount of people in higher education. How are they funding some of these things? There's higher education fraud. Yeah, there's a huge amount of higher education fraud. In fact, there's 400,000 illegal immigrants that are in higher education. Okay, how are they paying for that? Does anyone know? Has anyone looked? No, of course not. So no one has any idea how that's happening. So there's 400,000 illegal immigrants in higher education. That's 2% of the total higher education population, by the way. That's not a small number. Okay. And the problem with that is illegal immigrants, how exactly? So when illegal immigrants here, you would assume they're from a poor family. How are they paying for it? That's the question. What are they getting? Every single one of them somehow gets a student, a full ride from the school. I highly doubt that. So that means that my guess was, and this is what we started looking into when I started looking into, and I have a report back on this. I put it out in March, but you can find it on my page. I reshared it again here recently. But my theory was that they were taking duplicate Social Security numbers and using those and getting FAFSA files, and we were paying for it. That's what my theory was. Okay, and and then it comes out, what was it, not even a month after that, I think that Elon came out and said that, we found 7 million inactive Social Security numbers that were being used. Well, there you go. Magical. And that, to me, somewhere at the end of that line, which we never did get the end of that line because they managed to stop all that before they completely, we shredded the entire government, which we should have. Somewhere at the end of that line, someone was selling those Social Security numbers, by the way. That had to happen. At the back end of that, somewhere in the bottom of that stack, they were selling Social Security numbers. That has to have happened. Somebody in the government has been making a lot of money on this stuff. And I think that at one point they were even talking about, they're saying, there's a lot of people in the federal government that have been making lots of money when they shouldn't be. And how are they making it? Are they just really smart at stock trading, or are they just, how are they making their money? And I think that's a question that needed to be answered, and we never did get the answer. So, these are things that I don't think are going to go away, though, because at this point, the door is open. Now that people can see what's happening and the people are talking about it, it's not going to go away and it's not going to stop. So we have actually need to figure this out for quite some time. Angel of Depth, you came up here. How are you? I've never spoken to you before. What's up?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I was gonna touch on, wow, you've made a lot of great points. So first of all, great space and thank you. Okay. As far as the students, we actually did start getting into where their loans are from, where their student loans are from. They don't even need loans. They just get these grants from all these organizations. Basically, you've got a head, especially with people that are into like terror cells and stuff like that. You've got like basically a head of their organization that is trying to get them back in or get them in the country. And then they basically work out all the paperwork in front of a organization that they usually work with and bring in people that are foreigners that can basically show their loyalty to this person. For example, I don't want to touch, like, I don't want to make it a space about a specific group. That's why I'm not saying what kind of people it is, but they'll have like circles within their society.
Listen, and I know those. Okay, so that's true. Okay, and I actually found a bunch of the NGOs that were sponsoring some of these people, and actually most of those NGOs were getting government funding anyway. So, but that's part of it. But that doesn't account for 400,000 people. Okay, that's the problem. All right, it's not 400,000 of those people. We've got a illegal immigrant population that is in the higher education system to the tune of 400,000 people. Okay, so even if you have 5,000 of them that are those people that are specifically brought in underneath those grants, because I went through the grant numbers, by the way, there's not enough money. Okay, you need to come up with $48 billion to be able to 400,000 people, okay? $48 billion is missing. Where is it? Okay, I mean, that's the problem. So where is the money? So that's what needs to be answered, which is where I came back to the idea they're using duplicate Social Security numbers. And I was actually told by a number of people, some states even offer, some states even allow you to get grants as an illegal immigrant. In Virginia, for example, they have a system that you can get a grant for college, but even that was not enough to pay for state tuition. So, the average cost of state tuition in the United States is about $30,000 a year. And $30,000 a year is, the state grants that I was looking at, they offered about $7,000 or $8,000. That's some, but, that's not enough. So the question is, where is the money at? And even if you say half of those people had some means of paying for it on their own, that still leaves you $24 billion that is missing. So, there's a lot of money that's not there, and that's the question. So I never did get the answer to that, but, and no one really paid attention to that report. That was many months ago. Go ahead.
sorry, there's also places like Palestine, for example, where we are dumping hella money into Palestine. Palestine is actually sending 11 million, I think, dollars a year into Brown University. Um, there's all these places that are it's just like, why are you paying them? I thought you guys were asking for money. And there's a lot of foreign money that is coming into these schools, and you have to ask yourselves why. I'm also really bummed that the LASD chief just stepped down because I'm in Studio City and I really have a lot of questions. But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, yeah. Chief's on the show pretty often, so I'm sure he'll come back, and you're always welcome to be here. This, by the way, Angels, you're new to here, so this is the show that you're on the call-in version of the show. This is a simulcast show, so this is live on multiple different platforms. So welcome to the show, though. By the way, guys, if you guys would like to join the show and you're on the other on the other platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Substack, wherever you guys may be, I think we're actually might be live on Gitter tonight as well. I haven't checked yet, but apparently, every now and then I get added to something and then they ban me in like an hour. TikTok still has me banned. We were live on TikTok for exactly 8 minutes, guys. I found that out the other day. I told you we were banned quickly. Yeah, we were on for 8 minutes. That's how long we were allowed to stay on TikTok. So, but anyway, but if you guys would like to join the show, you guys are welcome to do so. Go to x.com, go to @WCDispatch, and you can join the show and chime in yourself. If you guys wanted to leave a comment, I do read the comments throughout the show. If you guys are on the streams, I can read the comments directly on the show, or if you want to leave them on any of the other situations, I can read them there as well. We've got another request to come up here on stage, but if anybody else would like to come up here and join, you are more than welcome to do so. We've got Keymaker coming up now. And let's see here. What else do we have here? We also had a couple interesting stories that happened. So we did end up striking Venezuela. I haven't talked about that yet, but everyone's been so focused on the fraud stuff that it's just been drowned out. There was apparently also a helicopter crash. Did you guys hear about this? There was a helicopter crash in New Jersey. Like 2 helicopters collided in midair. I didn't even hear about it because everyone, like the entire feed on everything was just talking about the Minnesota fraud. But apparently that happened as well. Keymaker, what's happening, man? Keymaker? Earth to Keymaker.
Hey, is this thing on? Is it working?
Now it's working. Now we hear you. What's happening?
Hey. So I just jumped into your space. I was over at the Candace Owens space, so I haven't quite heard everything you guys were talking about. But it's been wild over there. I got
she's doing a space
on what.
CTF?
Huh?
You don't want to go there.
She's doing her own space. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. She had a space. I think it's still open, but I was getting educated on what journalism is from non-journalists. So it was, it was interesting.
Listen, anybody that knows anything about journalism knows that Candace Owens is the greatest journalist that is ever journalist. So long as you understand that beekeepers in maroon shirts and dreams of foreign baton friends, these are all very important parts of journalism. And if you don't have visions from dead people, or text messages from 10 years ago, you can't be a journalist. So, just be aware of that if you're going to go to that show. I mean, I couldn't do. Someone told me about that. I was like, no, I'm not even going to go. I don't give a shit. And there's nothing there. And as I've said this a million times, Candace Owens has never said anything interesting ever in her entire life. Not one time. Never. Not a single time ever. She's never said anything interesting. So I don't have any interest in what her little space is about. I'm sure it's just as boring as everything else she's ever said. So
yeah, it was boring. And I was sitting there, and as it was going on, and I was just listening, I was like, this is really boring. So, but I was trying to get up there as speaker to see if I could, raise a few questions and then maybe
I'm
get
sure
some
that would go over
answers.
well.
But yeah,
my favorite development in the Candace Owens saga of retardation is that one of her closest allies on the X timeline, a guy that his name is Evan Kilgore. I'm sure you guys have seen his account before. He was promoting everything she said for like 2 months, and then he finally says, I don't think I can support what this woman's talking about. She's what her latest thing was. What was it talking about? A guy named Mitch Snow, who turns out to be some wife-beating, abuse, ridiculous, horrible person, and he's a fraudster and a con artist and all sorts of other shit. And as a result of that, Evan Kilgore comes out and he's like, I don't think I can support this investigation anymore. This guy's a scumbag. And she was like, you're being paid! Like, really?
That's basically what was just going on.
I mean, yeah, but really, this guy, he's being paid. Everybody's being paid to talk about how much they dislike you. I mean, you have got to be living in a bubble that is just so thick that I don't think you can smell outside of it. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. This guy's been parroting everything. You have been retweeting him for months. And he's being coordinated. He's texting with other influencers to attack me. No, they're not, Candace. You're just fucking retarded. Like, oh my God, you have been retarded the whole time. And maybe finally people are starting to go, well, let's hold that up a little bit. But oh man, so I didn't know she was doing a space, but
Yeah.
that's not interesting at all. But anyway,
Yeah, I think so Alex Jones had touched on some of it and he completely demolished her in his show. So I think that was what kind of started, what kicked this off, and she felt like she had to get in here and, do something on X. And I was like, okay, this is going to be exciting. Who's she going to bring up? Who are the speakers? And we all know who the speakers were. I'm not even going to mention all of their names, but all of them are retarded and they're not journalists. So I was not very impressed. There was one person I didn't know who was exactly, but he did have some valid questions and some assertions, and he kind of thinks the way that I do. I think he actually works for InfoWars, but he was kind of like, no matter which way the solution comes from this Mitch Snow story, it's still the same outcome. It means nothing. Right? Like there are no dots connected to this guy had anything relevant to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Or
oh,
any of
don't
these
you say that? I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was something 65 years ago that was directly related. Her grandfather knew Charlie Kirk's great uncle. I mean, like this is the kind of stupid shit that this is. I mean, like I can't do it, man. Like I can't do it. There's no.
Yeah.
And as I said, for anybody who listens to this show who has been part of this show, I have said for months now that Candace Owens and her entire investigation is the greatest IQ filter that has ever been existent on the internet. You're just dumb if you believe it. I'm sorry. I don't try to pander to people. I'm not a panderer, okay? Like if you're retarded, I'm going to call you retarded. Like that's just how it is. She's just an idiot, okay? And anybody who believes that people in maroon shirts, the Egyptian military, the Chinese White Lotus, and the French Foreign Legion are colluding with Bridget Marcon to assassinate Charlie Kirk along with President Trump and all of Charlie Kirk's friends, you're just fucking stupid. I mean, that's just the end of it.
The whole time I'm listening and I'm like, I'm wondering, I'm like hoping, I'm like, hey, maybe they'll make the mistake and bring me up. They don't know me very well or something. And maybe I'll be able to interject. But nobody gives a shit about what's going on in Minnesota in that space. When she brought Soleimani up, I was like, I'm out of here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't handle certain things like when shit isn't serious. And there are important things that we need to be discussing in reality, like in the real world. And they're not talking about any of it. None of them seem to care. And I'm like, whatever.
Listen, I was all fine with her doing whatever the hell it is, what she was doing for a while, until she started attacking the widow. And then further than that, she also started telling everybody, I don't care about your stupid midterms. Okay, that's it. Done with you. Get out of here. This is the problem. When you start dealing with things that are actually important, some of us out here, I genuinely worry. This is something that I actually worry about. That, if we don't actually manage to maintain the midterms and do something about it, that a lot of us are going to prison, okay? And I'll be at the top of that damn list because a lot of people don't like me. A lot of people in government really don't like me. There's people that I have pissed off for a while. And it's not something that's going to stop because I'm going to continue to piss them off. But let me tell you guys that it is a real risk that if the Democrats get back in charge, that all of the people like me and all of these other journalists you see out here that are on the ground actually doing real reporting, they're going to go to jail. Okay. And that's why I don't play around with it. I don't think it's a joke to me, but a lot of them, to them, oh, no, none of that'll ever happen. Sure. If you think that the Democrats are not going to be as visceral and hateful and spiteful to all of those people, yeah, sure they won't.
Oh yeah, especially after unveiling this fraud scheme that, that I thought was only in 14 states, but it turns out it's even more than that.
We touched their grift pile, okay, and they're very upset about it. And anybody who got close to the grift pile, anybody who got close to their campaign spending funding and all of their their side money, they're not going to be happy about this stuff, guys. I don't know what to tell you. The only solace we will have is that the gulags will be filled with all of my friends. I'll be able to play chess in between re-education beatings. It won't be that bad. As long as the walls aren't too thick, I'll be able to play chess through the walls. It'll be okay. At least, maybe we'll have some really terrible reading like Judith Butler. Judith Butler will be #1 mandatory reading for all of us in there. That'll be the only book we're allowed. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking forward to. But anyway.
Yeah, torture is going to be when they make us listen to Candace Owen episodes.
See, they won't play that. You're going to be forced to listen to stuff like, it's going to be like the podcast Save America on repeat all day long, every single day. It's going to drive me insane. I'm going to like bash my head against the wall. But that's the kind of stuff I have to look forward to when we lose the midterms and they throw me in prison. So, whatever. It'll be fun. Maybe Elon will be in there. It'll be great.
Key, thank you so much for posting the link to here, because that's how I ended up in here. By the way, I just went in there to just block everyone I saw. Anyone that was participating in there, I was like, block, block, block. I utilized that space for that, and then I see Keys posting about this space, so I enter here, and I'm like, oh, yay, intelligence, human intelligence. I rediscovered it. So
Well,
thank
I
you.
mean, listen,
Yeah, I posted your space in the comments on her thing, and I said if you guys want to talk about shit that actually matters in reality rather than slops, join your space.
oh, maybe that's where we're getting all our new listeners in, because I figured, my space has been suppressed on here, which is why we started all the other live versions of this show. Because this show over the summer, we used to have about 5,000 or 6,000 people listen a night, and then they killed it, and it went down to like less than 1,000 a night for, I don't know. All of the people that have been here from the beginning know that this show used to have thousands of people that were listening to it every single night. But that's why we moved to other platforms. That's why it's based on WCDispatch.com. That's why we moved to YouTube. That's why we have a Rumble and a Substack and all that stuff. So that's why the show moved over there. But that's okay, because now we get live video and you guys can all make fun of me. I mean, this is all great. So it actually worked out. But guys, make sure you share the space out if you guys are in here. If you're new to the show, this is the Political Theater. This is episode 153. Make sure you guys share the link out and put a comment down below. If you guys got something to say, you guys can come up here and join us on stage. If you're listening on the other platforms, you got to go to x.com, go to @WCDispatch, and you can join the show and chime in yourself. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I didn't know she was doing a space until about 20 minutes ago. So I'm sure nothing interesting will be talked about over there at all. We've got $110 billion worth of fraud that was discovered in a day by a guy just wandering around knocking on doors, and we wonder why things are a problem. I mean, like, what if it's so obvious that all you have to do is just physically arrive? Like, that's what's crazy about that video. Like, just watching Nick Shirley just walk up and they're like, he's ICE, don't let him in. Like, what? The kid doesn't even, like, I know he's in his mid-20s, but, like, he looks like he's, like, 17. Like, he does. Nick looks like he's a young kid. Like, he does. He just looks young. So he shows up in a hoodie, and he's just got a microphone. He's like, what do you have to say? And they're like, he's ICE. Like, wow. You imagine, like, that's your reaction to a guy in a hoodie showing up at the camera? Like, that's how fragile this whole fraud scheme is, that one dude in a hoodie can arrive and they immediately panic, scream, close the door, slam it in your face, and tell you to run away and tell everyone to leave because ICE has arrived. Unbelievable. It really is unbelievable.
That might be a call to violence, Walt, that they were trying to be, given what's gone on in some of these areas, that they were just trying to scare them with the potential of violence. You know what I mean? In lieu of some of these things that have happened to ICE agents and their vehicles and so forth. I mean, it's been bizarre at times, and I was kind of, I know that lady was crazy and everything, but I was like, is she doing this like on purpose to try to like incite, some kind of reaction against them?
Maybe. I mean, who knows? And my guess is that he already got tons of death threats anyway. I mean, you can't touch $110 million worth of fraud and not get death threats, people. I mean, like, I get death threats, and I was unveiling the, like $5 million worth of fraud. Like, I mean, the big social media influencer grift that I came out with back in April. I don't remember when that story came out, but there was there's a ridiculous fraud scheme, or maybe it wasn't fraud. It was just some ridiculous thing that they were paying. They were paying social media influencers with your tax dollars to publish authentic and persuadable Ukrainian content for the U.S. State Department. And by the way, the address for this business that had a $20 million loan or a $20 million grant from the federal government was a single office in a bank in Nome, Alaska. Yes. Now, when I called the bank, and I found it on Google View, and I was like looking at this thing. I was like, what the hell is this thing? Like, there's no business here. There's nothing here. So I called the bank and I said, you guys have a it was like gold something strategies or something like that. And I called and asked about it, and they said, oh yeah, well, I mean, there's an office here. Some dude, paid for an office and leased it for 3 years, but we've never seen him. I was like, oh, that's good. Wonderful. And just what you want to hear. You've got a $20 million grant from the federal government, but no one has any idea who's there, what's in the building, or what they're doing, which most of the time, by the way, the reason they do that now in Alaska, this is something that the Trump administration, to their credit, actually took care of. There used to be a credit system, or like a DEI system, and it was a point-based system. So based on how many identity points you got a higher chance of getting a federal contract. And if you were a native slope Eskimo, you had a 100% chance of getting a federal contract, which is why there's so many pass-through companies, and you guys know about the pass-throughs probably if you looked at James O'Keefe's most recent reporting. What those are. The pass-throughs are, you get it because of your identity status, and then you pass the contract on to somebody else, and you keep 10% of the profit of the business, and they do all the work, and you don't have to do anything, and all they do is it just assists you for getting government contracts. And that's been going on for 40 years, by the way. I mean, that's not new. In fact, there was actually a lawsuit in the mid-90s that said that the Supreme Court ruled that you had to give some government contracts to white people if they applied to them. Like that was actually a Supreme Court ruling in the 90s. I think it was in Clinton's administration. That was amazing stuff. Go ahead if you're trying to chime in, Angel.
Oh, do you know about the Levette Dobson, I think it's called, cases? All the files that are basically under one person that is supposedly residing in Texas but doesn't really exist?
No,
Oh,
what's this one? I haven't heard about this one. I just love
I
it.
think
There's so much fraud and ridiculous shit everywhere. It's just like, have you heard of this one? There's like $50 million. It's missing over here. It's everywhere.
everything. Yeah, so okay, the COVID era was the era where things started taking off for all these people that wanted to start endowment funds and just a web of deceit on getting government money. And I forget her name. I think it's like Lavette Dobson or Lavette Dobby or something like that. She is a person allegedly. I don't even know if she exists. That is signed. Like she basically signs the papers to get people businesses like LLCs online, because a lot of places will be able to get you an LLC going. If you just pay the initial amount you have to pay, and you just get like fake companies, shell companies, and these shell companies take out all these COVID loans and a lot of loans and a lot of government assistance. And they've been doing that. I think there's probably in every state there's about 50 at least, and Wisconsin is the most rampant. Wisconsin is the worst part, and I mean, I'll send you an article and you can go over it, and I'll put that in the pill too. But it's crazy. It is insane. It's everywhere, and it
Well, I mean,
won't stop unless we
that's
stop
not
it.
surprising. Listen, the amount of I know that they already looked at the PPP loans and they determined that something like more than like there was like a third of them were fraudulent. I mean, it's the amount of fraud that was in the PPP stuff is insane. But it's not just the PPP loans. That's the deal. Like that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that's just one, and I'll look into this case that you're talking about because I've never heard of it before. I mean, guys, just so you give in reference here, when people started taking into this stuff, there's one location that I've looked at. Okay, it is a daycare center, and I shit you not, it is a daycare center. That's what it says on the front. It says off to the side, enroll in virtual daycare. I'm not joking. Like, what is virtual daycare?
This is Minnesota, Walter?
No,
Virtual
this is in
program,
Michigan. This is in
obviously.
Michigan. So, like,
Yeah,
seriously,
virtual
what
children.
is
It's virtual
virtual daycare? Like, you have someone on a screen watching your kids through the screen. Like, is that like what's the purpose of virtual daycare? I don't understand. I mean, I thought the whole purpose of daycare is you're at your job, so you can't be at home. But if it's virtual, and it was free, by the way, you could enroll in it, and it was free. That's what it said on there. Free virtual daycare. Like, all right then, cool. I mean, it's just
Right,
such
but
a joke.
all that money went to the supposedly autistic kids of these immigrants and stuff like that. And I think maybe you would have to sign your kid up for whatever school or something or daycare, etc.
I mean, who
Like, and
knows?
then
I mean, listen, one of these places I was looking at, there's the Quality Leering Center, which is the one that Shirley found out there. But someone looked up Quality Learning Center and they found one in Michigan, and it was in 7 Mile and Hayes. And I've got a friend of mine who's from Detroit. Okay, he grew up on the south side of Detroit. He grew up on 7 Mile. And I sent him the address and I said, what do you know about this neighborhood? And he said, nobody lives there. I said, what do you mean nobody lives there? He said, that is like a gang heartland. Nobody lives in that area. That is a very dangerous side on the east side. There are no families in that area at all. And I was like, oh, that's good. Well, there's a daycare center there. He said, there ain't no daycare center there. It's like, all right then. So I love hearing this stuff. To me is like, so there's a daycare. I'm sure it gets lots of federal funding, and I'm sure they've got 400 kids that are enrolled in quality learning and virtual learning at the daycare center in the middle of the east side of Detroit. So I mentioned it to him, and we looked at it, and he was like, we were going to have to go up and check that out because it's almost 100% fraudulent. So I can't wait to go check out the daycare in the middle of the hood. I'm sure it'll be very interesting. But this stuff is everywhere. No one checks. No one looks. That's the real problem. No one looks. All right, guys, if you'd like, anybody else would like to join the show, you guys are more than welcome to come up here. All you have to do is request to come up on the show. Make sure you guys share the space out, by the way. This is the Political Theater, episode 153. We've got about another 40 minutes or so left in the show this evening. There was a lot more of other news that happened over the past week, but obviously no one talked about it because everyone is just absolutely zeroed in on this fraud. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next layer of this is. Obviously, I think the biggest thing that we can really start looking at is going to be the voting stuff. What Scott Pressler found out or he apparently already knew it, that you can have the vouching. Did you guys read about this? The 8-person vouch. So if you have a ID in Minnesota, you can then vouch for 8 people without an ID. I mean, like, what the hell is that? I mean, what do you mean vouch? How can you vouch for other people? And here's the other question: if they're Muslim people and they wear like the full burqa and niqab or whatever the hell that shit's called, like, can do they change the burqa and then you vouch for all those people too? Do they have to show their face? Like, how does that work? So, I think the amount of ridiculous fraud that you're going to find up there in the voter fraud is going to be astronomical. It's going to be astronomical. And it's going to be the same in every single one of these states that has the same rules. I didn't even know vote vouching was a thing.
That's like that kneecap, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
That's like the unlimited vote hack, right? Because you could literally just vote, walk outside, walk back in, vote, walk outside. Like, how are they going to know like who you are if you're allowed to wear something like that?
Well, listen, but you could just take
It's an unlimited vote hack.
You could take 8 people. You could take 100 different blankets, wrap them up each way, so that and make sure they're always in a different order. But then all you have to do is, for every time you want to do that, you get 20 people, right? You get 20 people with an ID, and then you get those same 8 people, and you just keep rotating them in different outfits for the entire day. No one would ever notice. How could you tell?
I've done that in other things. It's so easy. Like, if people don't pay attention. I've done that like in shows and stuff like that when I was like underage. I would go to shows and I would have like a change of clothes that are like 8 in the car, and I would get kicked out time after time, and I'd just come back in. It's really easy.
Yeah,
I know
that's
a few
just the
girls
reality.
that did that. Same thing. They always keep that extra change so they can get back in the club.
That's hysterical. I mean, but listen, how many votes do you think they did that with? I mean, it's going to be the amount of, and along with the fact that you can do same day registration. Are you allowed to register to vote without the ID if you're vouched? I don't know if that's part of the rule as well, but if that's not, that's crazy. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, that's wild. I think that this is all kind of interlinked. I think we're going to start seeing it because of all the rumblings I was hearing about the election stuff, and then now what we're hearing. So I know 2026 is going to be kicking off. I know that there's going to be a lot of action. I just feel like this is kind of intertwined with that election fraud stuff that's going to be like one of the primary focuses coming up. And I really believe that we're going to see a lot of changes, a lot of movement, and a lot of I know that people are going to be frustrated about this, but I bet a lot of these people are going to have to go to Congress, and they're going to have to, be under oath and at least answer to Congress. I know that's not really what we want, but a lot of these people, I think, are going to be hauled into Congress to explain what the hell they were doing and how billions of dollars got stolen. Like, this is outrageous, right?
Well,
Like,
I mean,
if it was
listen,
a few
in
million,
this-
I'd be like, okay.
Well, but that's the problem, though, right? I mean, the problem is that Congress itself is not, like, that's not enough. Okay, like Congress doing investigations, we've seen a million freaking mean letters, okay? I'm tired of the letters, okay? I don't want any more stern letters, okay? We need prosecutions of these people. There needs to be real people thrown in prison. This is what I've been talking about with the accountability stuff for months. Because there's no way that this stuff is not complicit at the upper levels of government at this point. There just isn't. There's just no way. Matt Tardio, welcome to the stage. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing so well this evening, sir. How are you?
Doing just fine. We've been going over this ridiculous fraud and the next levels of it that we're going to be looking at here. So, it should be pretty entertaining.
Well, I hope Walsh ends up getting fried. Did you see the couple-year-old clip of him and JD in their debate when he had talked about how he had propped it up and made it so much easier for everybody to open these daycare centers and how everybody deserves good pay for doing such a hard-working job?
No, I didn't see that, but that's amazing. I haven't seen the re-earthed clip. Listen, my favorite thing so far that happened today was the one that Shirley shared it again. Someone saw his video, right? And they called the daycare center. They called one of the daycare centers from the video, and it went to freaking Tim Walz's office. Did you guys see that? It's the most unbelievable thing ever. It's like, what? Like, it's just
Not only that, but there was a local news that went over and did reporting on it, because you know how they came out and said that the Learned Center, or however they decided to miss
the Leering Center.
Yeah, the Leering Center. Thank you very much. The Leering Center had closed a week before. It has been closed prior to, then people actually have videos of them going over and dropping off kids. There was another video that I ended up seeing today of multiple of these different sites over there with people that are bringing their kids in, checking them in momentarily, and then taking off with their kids. So essentially, the communities are just supporting this crowd.
Oh yeah, I mean they're
Going
all in
over-
on it,
Right.
and that's the
That way
deal.
They've got parent signatures or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they figure out the bare minimum that they have to do, and then they just repeat it on a mass scale. So those probably, I bet you that family, the ones that we saw from the videos, because I saw those as well. I wouldn't be surprised if what they were doing is they were just getting in the car, they check in there, and then they get back in the car and then go drive to the next one, and then check in there and go drive to the next one and check in there. I guarantee you that's how it worked.
You're probably not wrong. They probably get paid just to do that, to
Yeah.
go from one center to.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
that's probably what they
Somebody
do.
ought to follow. Somebody ought to follow maybe a van from one location to the next as they check their kids. I'm just throwing it out there as a suggestion, you know?
Well, listen, there's all sorts of fun things that can be done when you actually have people that are willing to do it. So, and this is something that, it's the reality is, I think that if a team of very competent people showed up and start looking, you're going to find things real fast. And that's, I mean, it just shows it. I mean, surely all he did was arrive at the location with their publicly available data and say, hey, you get a bunch of money to do stuff. Are you doing stuff? And there's nobody there. I mean, there's no kids, there's no anything. And you're like, who? What? No. Are you ICE? Why are you here, ICE? Like, what the hell? I mean, it's unbelievable. And the reality is, this is what happens when you don't actually prosecute criminals. Okay, when you don't prosecute anybody for any of this stuff. They just assume nothing will ever happen to them. They assume that this is just how it works here. You just set up a daycare center, and then that's your main source of income forever.
Well, let's be honest. Even if you prosecute them, they're still going to do it anyways because they're just going to get released. They're going to plea down. They're not going to see any real jail time. They might have, 70 plus felonies.
That's right.
Not do anything, and not see any time. So why wouldn't they do it?
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. The most recent story. Did you see this thing that just came out today about the unanimous jury verdict? So there was a $7 million in fraud found, right? And it was a unanimous jury verdict convicting them on that. And the judge overturned the conviction. I mean, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with that? I mean, it's just absurd. It's like, at that point, okay, so the judicial system is so corrupted at that point that they're letting off the fraudsters that juries are convicting. How do you deal with that? The judges have to be thrown in prison.
You have to invade, Walt, right? I mean, and I know that sounds crazy, but is there some kind of federal response that's legal, adequate, or whatever? Or is this just does it become to get real response or real change or acknowledgement in a reasonable amount of time, 6 months to a year? Is there, what can be done?
Well, I mean, the deal is that the federal government, this is something the federal government is supposed to do, okay? The federal government is supposed to be able to step in when the state government fails. That's part of the reason that the federal government, one of the things it's supposed to be able to do. I mean, it's, the federal government is still responsible for the citizens of this country and to keep the citizens safe in this country. But then the problem is you've got places like in Virginia, Virginia, Steve Deesco is the U.S. attorney up there. He let the murderer, the guy who killed this guy the other day, killed this girl the other day, he just let him out of prison the day before. He didn't even prosecute him. He refused to prosecute the guy, and then he killed some woman 3 days later. And he had actually attempted to kill the person that he then released him, and then he went back and finished the job. What the hell?
Oh my God. I read that story.
Yeah.
That one is so aggravating, Walter. Oh my God.
I mean, it's insanely aggravating, but what do? I mean, this is when the feds won't prosecute, okay? When the feds won't prosecute because the DOJ itself is so corrupt and useless, what do? At some point, I would say that you have to create a whole new agency. At some point, you have to create a whole new federal agency that is designed to prosecute the lazy prosecutors. There's got to be something done. I mean, I don't know how else you do it.
That's exactly what I've been saying. Exactly. You need to bypass that whole system because it's not working.
I mean, there just needs to be some sort of check and balance because it doesn't matter if you have it is almost completely irrelevant if you have some form of, the OGI, right? The inspector generals. Well, cool. They inspect something, but then they can't do anything. Okay, they can't do anything at all. I mean, it's not like it matters. All they can do is recommend back to the Department of Justice that they get prosecuted. And well, what do you know? The Department of Justice doesn't prosecute the Department of Justice. What a surprising shock that is. I know that's a twist no one expected. I mean, this is the ridiculous thing. But the only thing we can do, and this is what I tell everybody, is that the only thing we can do is keep making the noise so that everybody sees it. so that everybody sees this stuff. And I'm telling you right now, the first of this year, the beginning of this year, things are going to get real interesting because I know for a fact there's going to be a number of people that are out here doing this stuff. So it should be fun. Did we
First
get?
of the year is going to get insane, by the way.
All right.
Like what's coming up next year, I don't think America's ready for.
Oh yeah,
I really don't.
yeah. I mean, in this point now, the things that are going to change here over the next year, it's going to be wild. By the way, we get someone new up here. What is up? Good vibes only.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's happening, buddy?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I just basically want to say that like when Europeans were fed up with what was going on in Europe, they came to the New World and established a new place that was only them. Okay.
Mhm.
So okay, so like in the United States right now, we've kind of been overrun by brown and black people.
No, we haven't.
And it's
What?
well, I mean, since the Hart-Celler Act of 1965.
No, we haven't.
Okay. Well, so do you not acknowledge that the population has decreased from 90% white to 55% white now?
That's irrelevant to
55,
this
it's more
scenario.
like 65 to 70, and not that it really matters that much, but yeah, it's your numbers are a little off there. But
Your numbers are off, but it's also irrelevant. I mean, that has nothing to do with the fact that we have corruption across our system. I mean, the problems in our system are caused by the corrupt politicians
it
that we elect to
actually-
office.
Okay, it like actually does have to do with corruption, because if you don't have a high trust society of people with 100 plus IQ,
Well, listen,
then
listen
it
to me.
actually
If the
is an
argument,
issue.
hold on a minute. So, just to cut off the racial part of this, the argument is actually accurate and valid, specifically for third world
It's
immigrants.
not racial.
Just stop talking for a second. Third world immigrants, this is a huge problem. Okay, if you import the third world, you have third world problems. I mean, this is true. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I talk about the Haitian immigrant communities. This is a huge problem. The Somalian immigrant population is a huge problem. These people are from the third world, and they do not have the best interests of the United States at heart. It has nothing to do with the racial part of this, okay? People from, Europe, people from Asia, certain places, and, Koreans are incredibly intelligent and productive people. So are Indian people. So are some of the Japanese
Right,
people. All these people are very
right.
productive people. Now, if you go to Somalians, the number one occupation in Somalia is pirate. So maybe
Yeah, that's
not
the
bring
only
them
time
here.
I ever heard of. Yeah, that's the only time I ever heard of them.
Okay,
That and-
listen.
Yeah.
Listen. The issue is America was founded by white European people with 100 to 115 IQ.
But why are so many
Okay.
white people with over 115 IQ causing so many problems and are often at the forefront of the problems? Vibes.
Because
Yeah,
like letting off the
because-
Somalis.
IQ,
Okay,
because
listen.
IQ doesn't make you
Listen.
an intelligent person.
Yeah, it does not.
Let's
listen,
just be
listen,
quite
listen.
frank and
Guys,
honest.
guys,
No, hold on.
Guys, stop.
It-
We're not
it
gonna. We're not.
is a
This
skin
this
color.
is a
Also
pointless.
throwing it out there.
Well, this is kind of a pointless argument, so we're not going to even really continue it. But anyway, Jay came onto the show. What's up, Jay?
Hey, Walter. Yeah, that's interesting. It's part of this white heritage argument. Is that where we're going right here? And that's got to stop. It just has to stop.
Well, listen. I'll
The
say
whole thing with the Somalis is that this is tribal.
yes.
They don't even think this is fraud. This is just good for the tribe. So they're going to do it. And no, it doesn't conform with our laws, and it doesn't conform with any way that we think about law, and we don't accept fraud here. But that's what's going on here. It has nothing to do with, everything else you're talking about. And if we're going to go there, then I guess we got to kick Elon Musk out of the country too.
Well,
So
listen,
this whole
so
argument is just garbage.
the only thing I'll say on this, okay, and this is the last we're going to talk about this because this is a very stupid argument. We rejected bloodlines and heritage as our main source of, posterity in this country in 1776 when they told the British Crown to get the fuck out, okay? The entire country, our country, is built and designed so that one generation of man can succeed and have more of an impact on this country than all previous generations of the best family in the country. And that's something that has been proven 1,000 times over, okay? Some of the most successful companies in this country are from somebody who showed up here with nothing, got off the boat, tried to build his best life, and did whatever he could to make this country good. Elon Musk is a perfect example of that.
but
That is,
like-
no, stop talking.
Well, no,
Stop
I-
talking. Stop talking. I'm not,
All
listen,
those people were from high IQ countries.
buddy.
Right, all your
Listen to me, guys. I'm just going to say this one time, okay? If you're on this show and you're new to this show, this is simulcast on multiple locations. Don't interrupt, okay? And if you're not some of the people that are my personal friends, which is some of the people on this stage, don't interrupt. Just don't do it. It just makes it very difficult, and I have to clean the audio afterwards. So please don't do that. But anyway, no, the argument is very simple, okay? You know, there is no such thing as some form of American that is better than anybody else because their ancestors came off the Mayflower or some horse shit, okay? That doesn't matter, okay? That is not how this works. Okay, my ancestors, I've got lineage goes back to Samuel Houston. My grandmother was, you know, daughters of the Revolution. But, you know, I also know people that showed up here, you know, 2 generations ago and have built billion-dollar companies. So, you know, there's a whole different world out there.
Where are they from?
Dude, I have told you now 4 times. Shut the fuck up. Okay, anyway, we're going to continue here. Henry, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. One of the interesting things with this goofy line of arguing, and just to kind of flip it on its head, is that the through line isn't skin color, race, or IQ or anything. And Matt very correctly said, well, I think in part IQ doesn't yield positive results all the time. It's not the only.
It's all
measurement.
about IQ.
Okay, I've had enough of you.
So anyway, so the interesting thing though with the through line that this guy is kind of missing is that it's the left. Like, what did Elon say? Well over 90 to 95% of the stuff that they uncovered wasn't like Republicans are innocent, but like the degree to which that's the through line. That's the through line. Like what are we talking about? Like, so when we talk about the skin color, this, that, and the other, let's focus on all the goods, you know, on all the very, like, the pattern analysis doesn't say brown bad, black bad. Like, that's just stupid. That's really, talk about low IQ, bro.
Listen.
That's a low IQ argument.
The argument is just, it doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because our founding, again, if anything in our country specifically had to do with bloodlines, heritage, or anything like that, then we would just be Britain with worse weather and less biscuits. Okay, that's it. I mean, there would be no difference. Okay, we are not Britain. We are not. Okay, we are not some established thing. Or we rejected the idea that blood has any true moral authority. Our authority in this country comes from one thing. It's from God specifically. These truths become self-evident. That is what the Declaration of Independence says. Okay, it's self-evident. That means that every person in the world that comes here, if you acknowledge our oath, acknowledge this country, then you can do it. But if you come here and you're a shitbag, then obviously you don't have any interest in this country, which is the biggest problem we have, because we had moronic liberals that also, by the way, that all of them probably have master's degrees in sociology and gender studies and all sorts of other meaningless crap, that decided that it was a great idea to bring in those poor countries because their countries are so bad. We needed to bring them here. Those people aren't stupid. They're a different form of stupid. Okay, their suicidal empathy is what has caused this problem in this country, and it's liberalism and socialism that has caused these problems in this country. Marxism is what's caused these problems.
Yeah. And Walter, you know, I think what we've seen with what his argument was is you got to really be careful. I want everybody to just pay attention to this. Be careful what rabbit hole you go down to, because one time I was on X, and my timeline was so many racist videos. I thought the race war was already happening. I was like looking out the window. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, it's already started. I didn't even know. So you just got to be careful at what content you absorb, because you can end up like in that tunnel vision where you start to forget there are other things happening, right? Like the world is really big, you know? So I think that's kind of,
listen, the argument, the problem I have with these people when you get into these arguments with some of them is that they just don't make any sense. Okay. You know, like the whole concept that we need to, entire groups of people shouldn't be brought here. No, look, okay, one of the most interesting things people don't know, SATs. Okay, so SATs, if you guys don't know what that really is, it is actually one of the best IQ tests that has ever been created. Okay, and there's a great story about a guy from Harvard. So he was just a random kid in the middle of, I think it was Lebanon, right? It was the middle of Lebanon war, and he got a perfect SAT score. So they brought him to Harvard. Okay, they brought him to Harvard. That kid would have never managed to get here if we didn't develop those sorts of standardized testing. And he's a genius. He was a genius kid. And they actually threw him out of Harvard because he insulted some liberal white lady. That's really what happened. So I think he ended up suing the school. I actually haven't followed up on that case. I wonder what ended up happening with that. But that's just another case of that. So it has nothing to do with where you're from. If you're talking about IQ specifically, I mean, whatever. But that doesn't have anything to do with the reason we've imported bazillions of people from the third world. That's because we have morons in charge. We've got people in charge that believe that suicidal empathy is the best way to save the world. We can import all of them here, and we'll just save every single one of them. We'll fix everything if we just keep bringing them here, and that does not work. Does not work at all. And now we have pirates that invade everywhere. So, you know, that's the problem. What happens when you have liberals in charge?
How many high IQ people decided that that was a good idea?
Oh yeah, I'm
Tons,
sure they're all
tons.
brilliant. Yeah, I'm sure they're all super brilliant. They all, but the problem is they all sit in the same room and drink the same coffee and tell each other how great they are. You know, the problem is
There,
that that's the real issue.
there was a space yesterday with Mike Benz, or sorry, podcast yesterday on Rumble, and he was talking about the Somalian Haitian connection to the CIA, basically, because I guess the CIA was selling all these weapons or mainlining them through Israel and through other countries, like Saudi Arabia, and causing a coup in every different country and bringing over migrants so they would affect the elections essentially because the CIA was affiliated with the Democratic Party. So when you kind of go into the whole like map of things, you can sort of see like how this was all. I mean, they just needed people to vote, and they
Well,
needed people on their side.
listen to me. What I have said for months now, and I think I started saying this probably, I don't know, 2 months into this administration, is that the Biden administration and the Democrat Party is a criminal enterprise designed to import the third world and then pay them to vote for Democrats. That's what it is. That's really all it is. I mean, that's if you look at all the systems they did, you look at all the fraud that they've been part of, you look at all the reasons they started giving FEMA funds to people. They were putting up immigrants in 5-star hotels in New York City. Why were they doing that? To pay them to vote for Democrats. That's why they were doing that.
100%.
And now they're
it
paying
extends-
themselves, Walter. They're using the money through these scams to pay for their campaigns.
Well, listen, I mean,
It's
we found FEMA money. Listen, don't forget, we just found FEMA money that was in a campaign. There's $5 million worth of FEMA money that was paid for a Democrat congresswoman down in Florida. Don't forget. So, I mean, this is everywhere. Okay. And this is the fraud that we're going to keep finding. And this is why the Act Blue investigations, all that stuff needs to move forward. They need to actually have some sort of form of accountability for all of that stuff. It has to happen.
We need some high IQ white people on that investigation, Walter.
That's right.
Don't let any brown people investigate anything, huh?
Oh, that's right. I mean,
Yeah, right.
I found this so funny when I got in an argument with somebody about this talking to me the other day, and they were like, "Well, the Indian, this is the Indian argument." I was like, "Okay, let me explain something to you." My sister-in-law, okay, my sister-in-law is Indian. She came here. She has a master's degree in aerospace engineering. She has a master's degree in aerospace engineering. She has a pilot's license, and she's a paramedic. I mean, I assume the next thing she's going to do, by the way, she's also currently working to launch military satellites into space. That's what she does. That's what her current occupation is. So I assume that means that, you know, what the next thing she's going to do is learn the grand piano or something. Like, I have no idea. I mean, but this is the kind of person that this is who she is. So I just find it so funny to me that this is like even an argument.
No, 100%, man. Yeah, there's wonderful immigrants from all over the world and different backgrounds of people. It's a quality of character commentary, right? It's
Oh, there we
not it's not an issue with skin or anything like this. And even to an extent culture, like so long as you have an overlap, like Walt, I don't know wherever you grew up, but like, you know, we're in the same state. A lot of the second largest minority group or second largest population group in my high school was Indian kids. And of course they were filtered. They were like, mostly their parents were doctors and other, prestigious. Those are the people that were coming over in the 70s, their parents. And this was an unbelievable, they were at the top. When you talk about your sister-in-law or whoever that was, this was normative in my school. Like the kids that I went to were in the computer club with, they're in the DoD, they're all over the place. They're
Right.
doctors, they're this, they're that. My sister was dating a kid. She was like a 4.0 and everything. She wasn't even allowed to marry the kid because our mom was a teacher. It was like one of those castings. We didn't care. It was like, that was one of those things. It's like these are really in the reason why I say all that is when they start criticizing Indians and all this stuff. I get the H-1B thing; it's a huge issue, but we're also talking about a group of people that has a tremendous value system overlap and a worldview overlap that a lot of the folks that have come here with.
Well,
Americans
listen,
and with the West.
listen, the H-1B argument, this is something I bring up to people. It's like, listen, the H-1B issue is a real issue. It is. But, okay, what is your solution to it? Your solution is what? Remove all of them tomorrow? What do you want to bankrupt the tech sector? Like, is that, well, that's going to help us out. Like, yeah, we'll bankrupt the whole tech sector. That's a great idea. No, what the best solution to fix the H-1B issue is what Trump did, okay? The 100K tax that he added on there will disincentivize the loophole of using it for cheap labor, okay? If you have to pay 100K extra for every single one of these H-1B people on this list, that'll fix the loophole. Okay, that's the best way to do it because you can't just immediately, what are you going to say? Okay, make it retroactive. Every company that has an H-1B employee now has to pay $100,000 per. How are that would never hold up in court. They would say, well, listen, we followed the system that has been in place for 30 years. That would never hold up in court. They would immediately just strike that down. Now, if you add it so that every future H-1B that comes in is now taxed, that disincentivizes it. It makes it so that is not as efficient or cost effective essentially to be able to do it. So you have to do it some way, because it does need to be addressed, because the loophole of using it to use for cheap labor, by the way, is just ridiculous. And by the way, I want to make sure I welcome Chris to the show, because apparently he has been sitting in the waiting room of the show and I didn't see it sitting there on the side. So what's up, Chris? Welcome to the show.
Hey man, I just felt like you were leaving me at the altar.
I was waiting for it to like. There's on my screen. Usually, there's a little bubble that shows up on the side that shows when you're in the waiting room. I had no idea you were sitting there. Like, it didn't show up, so I just assumed you had got busy or something. So my bad. But welcome to the show, dude.
I was see Chris.
Yeah,
he's on the live video version of it, Jay.
Oh, okay. I'm like, am I going crazy?
No, he's on the live video version.
He is going crazy. I love it though. CTF cracks me up. And I don't know about the other guy. Good vibes was not good vibes.
Good vibes was low IQ vibes, even though he was very focused on IQ.
You know, the fraud in the Somali community is going to be interesting to see where this all goes. I think it is going to expand in historic ways. It's going to include a lot of federal funding. The question is, of course, whether they're going to be able to prosecute. Because these judges throw things out, and it's pretty wild. It's wild to see unanimous jury verdicts get thrown out by judges who feel like the jury was not correct in their rulings, and it's all politically motivated. And I don't know how you circumvent that other than Congress finally holding some of these judges accountable.
There's a lot also that ties into insurance companies. That's another thing that I kind of learned about this situation. A lot of the insurance companies, the big insurance companies, are part of the money laundering scheme that is happening in the United States, because they need to make money appear to be a pool of money that it is not, and appear to be something that you're not supposed to investigate or go into because of HIPAA, because of whatever. And that really is part of the foundation of that. But there's so much in this.
There is.
Well, Walter, it's funny she brought that up, because as a claims adjuster, I'd been up in Minneapolis 10 times actually since 2013. And a lot of the property claims that I ran in Minneapolis that were Somali and Ethiopian were what we call actual cash value policies, meaning there's non-recoverable depreciation, meaning that the insurance company makes a lot of money on that property. And so if they have a hail claim, for example, let's just say it's a $10,000 roof, they maybe got $4,000, the insurance company kept the rest of the money. And so, so there may be some points to that. I'll just simply say that Minnesota in 2023 was vastly different than Minnesota in 2013. Minneapolis, is what I'm referencing. And it's noticeable.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Adam, you got your hand up, and Stephanie joined the show. Go ahead, Adam.
Ladies first. She had her hand up first. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Stephanie. How are you?
Hey, everyone. Good. Thanks for having me, Walter. I jumped up when we were talking about immigration, and I would probably have a lot of the same sentiment that people have about H-1Bs, but I can tell you, in my opinion, this is what we're so frustrated about, is the fact that the system in so many directions is so broken, it can't be fixed overnight unless we have some draconian measures, which we would all love to see, or most of us. I just think it's going to take a while. And going back to H-1Bs, I was in physician recruiting a few years ago, and it was for specialty physicians. It was very, very high level, hard to place. Think cardiac surgeon in Wyoming. It wasn't the most desired places, kind of rural hospitals, but some of the most talented, knowledgeable physicians that I met were H-1Bs, Egyptian doctors, because when they come over, they actually have to go through med school in their country, and then they have to come over and go through med school again in English. Can you imagine how hard that would be?
Well, they have to pass. They have to come over and pass the medical board review, which is not simple. I mean, that's why a lot of these people, when they'll come over here, you'll see, I've actually met cabbies, literally people that are driving
Yeah.
cabs that are doctors. Like they're doctors from their
Yes.
country, but they're trying to pass the U.S. Medical Board Associations. Like it's a real review, and it's a serious thing for them to be able to do part of it. So that is true.
It is, and they're so talented, and that's the thing. Long story short, the whole system, and this goes back to tracking. The amount of money they spend on all this fraud, if you take that and roll it over into a system that they could actually hold people accountable when they come over, and vet people better, and maybe track them for the first year. Yeah, I lived in Germany, and I lived in Germany when the wall was still up. And I can tell you, if you go to any other country in the world, it is not that easy to just be there and do what you want to do. It's like you have to assimilate and you have to appreciate the country. So, long story short, I think that we really need to flip everything on its head, say quality over quantity, because the left was importing, as we know, people just to have voters and give them free things. They don't appreciate it. So,
Well,
if
and
you
the
think
biggest
about
thing
it,
is assimilation. If you're going to come to America, you
exactly.
have to become an American. You have to swear an oath to our flag. You have to mean it. You have to actually care about it. You have to want to be part of the culture. Okay, if you're not going to assimilate, if you're going to come here and be a leech, and your only reason for being here is welfare, then you need to get out. And like the whole concept of anybody that's here on like a permanent residence or a temporary residence or anything like that, and you're here on and you're taking welfare, hell no. Okay, that should
You
just not
can't just
happen.
come.
Yeah, you should just
You gotta
that
prove
should just
it.
be removed.
You prove it.
There should just be no welfare for anybody that's not an American citizen. Now, listen, if you're like a permanent resident, say you're somebody that's a green card and you're in the middle of the citizenship process, and something happens, so you say you break your leg in 4 places and you can't walk. There should be a social safety net for something like that is fine. But coming over here and just saying, well, I have my permanent residence, now I'm going to access your entire welfare system and I'm not going to work. No. That shouldn't be a thing. That should not happen. That should be removed. There should be no chance of that happening ever.
And this is how they get on the voter roll.
Get that out, right?
What now?
This is how they get on the voter rolls. So only like 7 states in the United States actually verify citizenship. And so what happens is they, when they come over on refugee status, they have to go to a local DMV that happens to be in the same area where the Somalis or fill in the blank basically come to, like their area. And then they go there, they get a state issued identification so that they can qualify for the benefits that they're going to get at max levels without having to prove any income verification for as long as they're here. And they get put on the voting rolls because their translator out for them.
You're going to understand since you don't even have a mortgage.
Okay, that's sorry here. I don't know who that is, but go keep going, Chris.
So it's funny because I actually pulled up this report and that I had. It was a 100-page report I've talked about in the past. This was conducted in 2011 by me and my team. And there's a gentleman named Brock Rule, who was a Republican, a very wealthy guy, but a Republican-led election judge. He went to this precinct to see if what he was hearing was true. Anybody who knows Jack Cashill, acclaimed conservative author, this guy was friends with Jack Cashill and Crosby Kemper, a premier name in the Midwest. I'm just giving you a couple excerpts real quick, Walter. Groups were taking ballots to seats in the public section of the auditorium. This is a precinct. This is Somali voters, away from the voting booths where, quote, team voting was occurring. This is where individuals handed multiple ballots from Somali voters. Groups collectively, openly discussed how they were voting and had one individual fill out the ballot. Female spent 45 minutes in voting booth. She would wait for groups to arrive, vacate her booth, and then fill out the ballots for these groups. Yeah, I mean, this is the truth. This is so crazy.
This is what we were talking about. So you were listening in because apparently I left you in the waiting room the whole time. But you were listening when I was talking about the vote vouching system. It was like, What the hell is that? Like, what do you mean vote vouching? Like, you can vouch for these people? Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to give you my voucher. Like, yeah, I have an ID. You don't. For 8 people? I mean, who the hell approved that? I mean, it is the most obvious form of fraud that I've ever heard of. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. And the crazy thing is, and this is where on the election side, Scott Pressler is blowing the doors off of it, but this has been in existence. It's just crazy that it's been in placed into law. This is one of the things I talk about with Minnesota, with Governor Walz and Kamala Harris, two of the most extremist candidates to ever be on a major party ticket. And they put these things into laws. So they actually allow for team voting, where if you are one of these fraudulent centers and you have 120 people who don't exist in these centers, all of a sudden you can cast a vote for these people and no one can question it. Unlimited amounts of votes as long as they are, quote, in this center. And so this is what's happening in a lot of these, this is what's been happening in a lot of these places. I would submit that this is how Minnesota went from a purple state, it was a swing state, to a strong Republican state. And there's no doubt. I heard the sheriff chief. I heard him talk about how there's no doubt that state and county officials know about this. And I will confirm there is zero doubt that state officials don't know this. They absolutely know this because they are in power in a massive way. One hand feeds the other. And this is why we see right now the Minnesota Department of Health Services has shut down their site because of traffic, but it's the site that shows what centers and Somali centers, or any center for that matter, that gets Medicaid funding. So they've shut that down so that no one can go and continue to do the research on it. They absolutely know what's going on, Walter.
Yeah, they do. I mean, and that's the deal. And this is what we were talking about. Matt was talking about it, and I was talking about it. The deal is there's no way at this level, at this much money, there's no way that people at the top level that are not complicit in it. They have to be. There's no question. I mean, there's no question. When you get to when you've got a couple $1 million in fraud, okay, maybe people don't know. Okay. When you got maybe $50 million in fraud, maybe people don't know. Hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud, somebody freaking knows. Okay. And just billions. The fact that Tim Walz. Billions. Yeah, billions. I mean, that's billions. What I'm talking about. We know for a fact right now that there is hundreds of millions. Now, the idea is that what I've seen, the highest number I've seen so far is 8 billion. Okay. And that's just in Minnesota. Just in Minnesota is what I've seen. 8 billion is the top number that I've seen so far. I haven't seen confirmation on that yet. That's the reason I still say hundreds of millions. But the deal is, at that level, there's no way that people aren't involved. Somebody at the top level of that is facilitating it, making money off of it, pushing it somewhere, intentionally setting things up, intentionally letting things slide. That is obvious. There's no question about that anymore.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, we're getting statements out of the administration. So like Kelly Loeffler, former senator, she's the SBA director now. She's posted online, Walter, SBA's pausing annual funding. So we know about the 8 billion minimum. They were saying roughly 8 billion. It could be potentially 10 or more billion. But just in the PPP fraud, for just Minnesota, SBA is pausing annual funding for Minnesota while we investigate $430 million in suspected PPP fraud in Minnesota, and we know this is basically Minneapolis, and so that's just insane to me that it's at that level. Obviously, Secretary Linda McMahon, Education Secretary, has made a public statement because these are childcare centers, right? And so what'll be interesting is also to see anything out, I know with the EPA, anything with Department of Ag, so all of these things are going to come into picture. And I do think those totals are going to exceed $10 billion just in Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, and we know that California is going to be the worst out of all of them. Matt, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the correct words that I believe you were looking for was not a snowball's chance in hell that even at the hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud at the state level, they were unaware of it.
Yes.
If they were not aware of it, they are in complete and total dereliction of duty. Their fiduciary responsibility is blown through the freaking roof. They failed on levels that nobody can possibly comprehend.
Yes.
I've been equating it to the Scene Casino, where the relative of one of the bosses in Vegas is running the slot machines. And 3 slot machines hit within 10 minutes. And Robert De Niro says, you didn't know you were being set up on the second win, so you were too stupid to realize it, or you're in on it. And either way, you're out. So there's no good excuse for this.
Yeah, either way, you can't be trusted. It was a great line. Great line. Great moment.
Yes. Very much so. I mean, it's just true. Okay. I mean, this like in the argument is pretty ridiculous. But to be honest with you, you got to start wondering though: is Tim Walz retarded or is he like straight up a capo? Like, I mean, is this
But
guy
they-
like
but-
they really?
Whoa.
You got to ask that question though. You do because he's talking. You
Can
guys
he
got to
be
remember.
both?
I mean, but you don't know. He could be a retarded capo. That's true. But you mean, listen, guys. Minnesota lawmakers are being assassinated at their homes by men in masks that look professional when they show up. Okay, I mean that happened. All right, and by the way, those
And
two
he's-
people.
He had a claim, right? Like, I mean, am I wrong that this guy actually made a statement to the police that he did it for Tim Walz?
He
I'm
did
not
it, no,
saying
not
that-
just a statement. He said that Tim Walz directed him to do it. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. I mean, we may have like Tim Walz may be the happy-go-lucky, like he may be like the Penguin from Batman, dude. He kind of looks like him, so maybe that's part of it. Adam, you've been trying to get in here for a
I
minute.
think that's
Go ahead,
Jerry
Adam.
Nadler, but yeah.
This is the same stuff that happened in Ohio with Les Wexner. When Les Wexner was trying to take people out before he was getting investigated by the IRS, they were doing all these like in broad daylight. People are getting shot like mob style.
Oh yeah, maybe. Listen, the amount of fraud when you get up to this level, when you start messing with it, it's not going to go away. Like they're not going to play. Okay, that's what my argument has been this whole time. Is that like this is why Nick Shirley needs to have some serious security. That's why when we're talking about the stuff that I'm talking about for the future investigations that we're going to be doing, there's going to be security for this stuff. We're not going to play around with it. I mean, you have to. It was one thing before Shirley's thing went super viral that maybe you could kind of show up with a camera at these places. Listen, guys, if you intend to go out and do this, please take your security seriously because these people are not going to play. There are hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. Hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
There's
Walter,
no joke anymore. Go ahead, Keymaker.
I want to welcome up to the stage Monica Matthews. She just joined
Oh,
us.
hey, Monica. How are you?
Oh, hey, thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. Hey, Walter. So I heard Christopher's voice coming out of your mic. I was like, what am I missing? Listen, I don't want to jump in front of everyone else, but I do have a question. What Christopher was describing, yes or no, is otherwise referred to as ballot harvesting.
Yes.
In English. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was a statement under oath to law enforcement. And of course, law enforcement didn't go further and local law enforcement didn't investigate because obviously, it's in a liberal city. But it did lead to the Somali Foundation. This is, again, 15 years ago, did lead to the Somali Foundation being shut down. What we're seeing now is just on a massive level because it's funded by all this fraudulent NGO money, all these tax dollars being illegally used. And of course, we know the COVID funds.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think if you and Matt, you may have investigated this or Walter possibly extensively, but for years I have been, yelling from the rooftops for people to pay attention to Ellison. Especially after what happened with our illustrious Pornhub rock star who was carried through the country in a gold casket. Excuse me, who otherwise is known as, the Summer of Love King.
You mean St. Floyd?
Yes, St. Floyd, exactly. And so when you listen, you used the P word a few minutes ago to describe Waltz. I would suggest that he's more of a patsy. And what you're going to find is that I think, and I'm not law enforcement, but I do have a keen eye for these things. I think what you're going to see is listen, it's no mistake that he was set up to be nincompoop's running mate, right? I mean, everyone's like, what the hell? Why would they choose Tim Walz? Now it's all starting to make a little bit more sense. So I'm not sure he's as dangerous as he is a complete useful idiot. And I think you're going to see, more of that come to the surface. But I think if you'll follow the ties between CARE, Muslim Brotherhood, any of these factions that have been created, through the vacuums that we have created,
Yep.
by the way, I think you'll start to see where they just have home bases here. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to jump in front of you guys.
No, you're good, Monica. Welcome to the show. You're always welcome to me. By the way, you're hearing Chris's voice because the live video version is on as well, and Chris is on the live video version, which you're also welcome to join at any point, Monica. I'll send you a link. But yes, that is the real question. And the reality is he an idiot and he's the patsy, or is he the capo? There's only two options. Like at the end of the day, that's what the point is here. There's only two options. Either he is a complete and total moron, and that he is just like wildly running around and has no idea. I mean, like, I do enjoy watching the videos of the people showing up outside of his house just screaming retard. I have enjoyed those thoroughly. Like, keep those up, people. I need more of those videos. I'm loving those. Those are fantastic. I need some more of those videos. Those keep me going through the day. But I mean, just like, he's either an idiot or he is like the criminal cartel leader that has somehow fooled everybody. Like, there's the only two options in this scenario. It really is.
I know. I got a third one for you, Walter.
CIA.
What's that? What's the third one?
No, I think they picked him because they got dirt on him.
Oh, that's
Yes,
Then
possible.
they
Yes,
can
Matt.
leverage him and they can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, that's
100%.
true. That's true.
100%. I
That's
think they're-
always an option for a lot of these people. I mean, that's true.
Well, you guys remember his daughter and wife were coordinating with the Summer of Love folks on where police was actually at, so that they could avoid and be successful in their riots. I mean, this guy is so extreme. I mean, people don't understand. He was willing to lie about his record in the military
China.
to get escalated. His net worth was not able to be tracked because apparently it was a lot of cash and he spent a lot of time in China. So like this is but there is a very real divide, I think, between him and Amy Klobuchar, that they're on a personal level. Apparently this is being alleged by the guy who, assassinated these politicians. And I think that's very real. And so it makes sense that what Monica was saying, him being a patsy, that would make perfect sense that they would want him to fall and take the fall for something, and so that he could get out of the way.
Yeah, that's also possible. Go ahead, Adam. I know you've been trying to get in here. All right, Jay, if you had something to say, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say real quick. He talks about white supremacy and the white guilt. I'm sick of it. And it has nothing to do with white supremacy. It has to do with white idiocy. He's white and he's an idiot.
I love it. Guys, make sure you share the space out. This is the Political Theater. We got about another 10, 15 minutes left in the show this evening. Make sure you guys share the link out. Leave a comment down below if you got something to say. And if you want to come up here and join us, you are always welcome to do so. If you're on the other platforms, go to @WC Dispatch on X and you can join the show and chime in yourself. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks for the mic, Walter. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry
and
Christmas,
yours,
buddy.
and everybody else on stage and in the audience. Yeah, man, it's pretty wild. It's a big racketeering RICO case, essentially. With everything that they've been doing, it's been known. But I wanted to speak to in regards to the tech sector, because during COVID, I ended up working from home as tech support. And man, I'll tell you, I was doing tech support for Netflix. And imagine when people during COVID locked down in their home, when their Netflix wasn't working, oh my God, the world was over for them.
Shit.
So I had to walk people off of the edge of a cliff sometimes. Don't worry, we'll get it sorted out for you. But, what happened is once things started opening up, they people, the demand for tech support was less. So the people that were in the Philippines, that where they offshore these jobs, they're not specialty tech jobs really. It's not high end, network engineering or security or anything of the sort. It's kind of help desk sort of low end sort of tech jobs, right? That people work and are entry level jobs for young people that young Americans can take.
That's right.
So once everything started opening up with COVID, they started moving us from doing support for that over to support for AT&T and cellular support. So, the thing is, we offshore a lot of these jobs in that sector of things. But I understand bringing people over for specialty if they have specialty tech or doctors and specialty areas that we have a demand for. That's understandable, and as long as they're vetted, of course. But yeah, allowing this sort of racketeering scheme for the DNC to funnel money back to themselves and fraud and all this can't be allowed. And we've known this stuff was happening through Act Blue and BLM and all this stuff throughout the years that I've seen it. You know, I went to BLM back in 2020, and it redirected me to Act Blue, and I was like,
Oh yeah,
huh,
yeah.
very interesting. Yeah, but I yield. Thanks for the mic, Walter.
Yeah, good to see you, Adam. Welcome on the stage. Yeah, I think Act Blue still is on BLM's website. Which, by the way, isn't that guy facing like 400 years in prison or something like that? Is like that? That's the last thing I saw about that. It's like some absurd number, like some ridiculous. Oh wow, shocking that was that much fraud in that agency. I mean, I just remember the videos of people showing up at their house, and it's like this giant mansion. Like, oh yeah, that looks like a real nonprofit organization. Really non-profit about that in that beautiful mansion of yours. Okay,
Hey, Walter,
go ahead, Angel. Go ahead, Angel of Death, or Angel of Depth, and then we're gonna go to Henry, and then Monica has her hand up again.
Yeah. So again, the years where Walls was in Hong Kong and China and all that was the years, incidentally, that we started running guns through that area. So you can do all the math. Like, please watch the Mike Benz special from last night on Rumble, because it'll add so much together. Like, you'll understand the global view of everything, how it all connects, and how it's all connected through a group of people that are on a certain party side. And it'll blow your mind. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Walter, one thing we talked about with this scandal that I don't think has been brought up, I think maybe it was mentioned briefly, but it's, Ilhan Omar and her husband firm, which is huge. I mean, this is, Adam brought up the DNC. Her husband, they hook up, they get in a relationship. He creates Rose Lake Capital, a consulting firm, in 2022. It has, obviously minimal money, goes to 5 and then up to $25 million in revenue right away. Her net worth goes from 51,000 to 30 million in 1 year. And so now all of a sudden these individuals are vanishing from his website, the board of directors of this company, as this fraud thing begins to explode. And so here's a couple of the, just so we know who they are. Obama's ambassador to Bahrain, Adam Early, former senator and Obama ambassador to China, Max Baucus, DNC finance chair, Alex Hoffman, former DNC treasurer, William DeRoe, and the biggest one probably here is the former ex-CEO of the Amalgamated Bank, Keith Mestrix, which is the bank for all of the unions. And so, or at least one of the major banks for all of the unions. So, these people are not small fish. These are huge people that have massive financial reach. And all of a sudden they're vanishing from the website as things heat up. So of course we know the Feeding Our Future scandal that's broken huge. This is the $8 billion scandal that's being referenced, is bringing a lot of heat there, and it's going to be interesting to see which way it goes with Ilhan Omar.
Well, I mean, this is the biggest thing about Ilhan Omar. And this is the biggest point that I've been making recently about it. In fact, I had a whole monologue talking about Omar, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, talking about this. It's like, listen, there's no chance that this woman comes over here with dubious immigration system, right? So somehow she gets here, she marries her brother, she manages to get immigration papers, she gets fast-tracked, and then suddenly she is fast-tracked into the Democrat Party. She's fast-tracked into the Democrat Party. She is lightning rod growth, okay? She just, boom, straight up to the top. She's part of the squad. She's on every single media thing. She's everywhere. So they've got her everywhere. And then magically, there's $8 billion of fraud in Minnesota. And, she's also in photos with some of these people. She's in photos, her campaign victory speech was at the guy's restaurant that's one of the lead guys in this investigation. Listen, none of that is just coincidence. Okay, it's not. There's no way it's a coincidence. No way any of that's just, oops, oh yeah, she just happened to be part. No, okay, that's where all this money's gone. And my guess is it was directly tied to the money that's being sent back to Somalia and then being kicked back over here through Act Blue and going through the smurfing incidents that we've been seeing across the country. That's where all that stuff's going. Okay, and that's the reason that you've seen these people grow like that. Okay, they're probably all the top level of their, how they managed to instigate their fraud. I guarantee that's how it all works. And there's no question in my mind that when you see that much money going missing, that this person is probably not at the center of it. I mean, it is obvious. And now she's out here telling, well, I don't care. I don't care if you deport me. Deport me. I'll go home. Like, yeah, well, let me tell you, this is somebody that believes she's untouchable, and I think she should be in prison, but we'll see.
That many coincidences equals a conspiracy.
Yeah, well, unless you're Candace Owens, then you'd have to be wearing maroon shirts. Otherwise, it doesn't count.
Well, or you could dream about it.
That's right. Well, I mean, it always comes to me in a dream. I had a dream that Ilhan Omar married her brother and then, somehow became a citizen and then a congresswoman. Oh, wait, that actually happened. Never mind. Okay. But yes, anyway, continuing here.
Worked
Go
for
ahead,
Mormons.
Matt. What now?
Said it worked for Mormons.
Was that Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream"?
Oh, yeah. I have a dream. That's it. All right, Henry, you got your hand
I
up.
apologize if you're LDS. Maybe it went over a lot of your heads, but it's factual.
Oh, my goodness. Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, hey, quick comment too on like all these problems and stuff that we see in K through 12 and higher ed education, for decades, the whole money laundering thing with union dues and how that gets skimmed and goes right back to the DNC. What's interesting about the H-1B thing and how it's kind of connected to all this stuff is that it actually exposes, and I don't think people talk about this enough. It actually exposes the fact that we have to reach out. It's not that we have like that we're like bereft of talented, bright people in the country, right? We just haven't been doing anything with them as much as we could be otherwise. And it's funny because I actually got a few weeks ago I got thrown out of a speaker, like a space, like the speaker thing, because I brought this up, and some of these goofy far right dudes, they just like, oh, we have a great, we don't, and we're not maximizing the people that we have. And I think one of the things that could be talked about, I think, could be this factor that gets just kind of like not enough discussion, is that we're not like the education system is so screwed up that we could be pulling from and should be pulling from to uplift American citizens and their families with good jobs, and we don't, and I think it's an attack point that I think we should really.
Well, the biggest thing, like I said, for the H-1B stuff is that the loophole is what needs to be closed. Okay, the loophole on using it to get cheaper labor, that should not happen. Okay, like you shouldn't be able to just hire somebody for half the cost of a entry level coder position. Okay, like that shouldn't happen. Okay, if you H-1B should be used for what it was intended for, which is people for positions that you can't find in the United States. If you need those positions, you're not going to care about the $100,000 tax on top of it. Okay, that's not going to matter to you. If you need some super AI level engineer, let me tell you guys, they're paying those people $600,000-$700,000 a year right now. Okay, they don't give a shit if they have to pay an extra $100,000 for those people. That doesn't mean anything to them for those positions. But now, if you've got somebody that you're trying to get somebody that's an entry level position that you'd have to pay an American citizen $75,000 for that position, but you can pay an H-1B person $35,000 a position. No. That's not what the H-1B system is designed for, and we don't need that. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Walter, do you think the U.S. dollar is in danger today?
Well, I'll tell you, this whole issue with silver is pretty interesting. Silver is now is essentially doubled in price within the past like month or two. So it's there is some interesting thing going on
this year.
Yeah,
140, 150%, depending on how much paper gets dumped on the market on a daily basis, right? But the reason I bring it up is you mentioned bringing over cheap labor from overseas, right? And while everybody was talking, I was doing my Twitter scrolling, and I ended up coming across a post that ended up talking about a dime from 1964 being worth approximately $5.25 today in real money because of the amount of silver that was in it. And
yep.
The post had said that essentially this dime was going to be worth minimum wage before you know it, right? Like coming up in the very near future. But that's actually not true. It would take 4 of those dimes from 1964, right? Because the minimum wage back then was 40 cents. So when you compare that to today's cost, you're actually looking at what, like $22, something like that, with that one dime in today's charge. So we have quite literally outpaced ourselves. And we have gotten to the point where we just continue to bail ourselves out and print additional cash and everything else. And I think that's the danger really that we're looking at. And you go overseas and you go to some of these other countries, that money goes a hell of a lot further. Yep. And if we are to be honest, and if we are going to be true, we actually need to get back towards that capitalistic society. We need to stop screwing ourselves over. We need to stop letting the institutions take over. We need to stop letting these politicians that are just giving money away. Yep. Like billions of dollars in Minnesota. How much money have we been talking about has just been wasted, right? We're not even talking about, I saw reporting on Washington State having way more of these ridiculous daycare centers. So
yeah, I saw. I agree. I saw something on Washington State that there's something like 500 places that don't even have physical addresses. I mean, the amount of fraud is everywhere. It's outrageous.
But we're not even talking about the amount of money that we send overseas. We're not even talking about what USAID actually spends their money on. I mean, like the amount of money the United States government wastes.
Yep.
And it's that dollar is being, like, the burden actually falls on the U.S. taxpayer.
Yep.
You know, you can't do anything today without being taxed 5 times over. You know, if you don't think you're being taxed on a daily basis, you're wrong. You know, you flush your toilet, you're being taxed. You go for a walk, you're being taxed. The shoes that are on your feet are being taxed. The fuel that's put in your vehicle is being taxed. Your vehicle's being taxed. You know, like you can't even go fishing without being taxed. You can't go hunting without being taxed. There's nothing you can do in this lifetime without being taxed, and you're taxed 4 times over. Hell, you can't even pay people money in this country for doing a good job without being taxed.
That's right.
Right. And then the money that you pay those people gets taxed on top of that. I mean, these are all very real things that happen inside of this country.
Yep.
So I'm just throwing it out there. We're at a point that's now unsustainable. We've taxed ourselves to the point that I think all of the taxes that were collected in June here in the United States of America didn't even cover the national debt payment for that month.
Well, and this is the biggest thing to me that I look at. You know, when people talk about the idea of having a free capitalist society, I agree. But we haven't had one for a very long time. You know, our subsidies market that we have in this country pumps money into the market on astronomical levels all over the place. I mean, just look at the SNAP stuff that everyone found out about here recently, right? So how much money is just being pumped into SNAP? Okay, you know, Oreos. People can buy shitloads of Oreos, you know, with SNAP money. And that's a subsidy, essentially. You're subsidizing the market when you're giving people money, and it's our tax dollars paying for it. You're subsidizing some form. And this is in every industry. You know, I'm all for free markets. I'm all for free capitalistic society, but we don't have that right now. If you removed all of the subsidies, that would be a different story, but we haven't removed all the subsidies. And now you've created a system where one side of the market, like multiple sides of the market actually, are just overinflated because they don't have to actually be profitable businesses. You know, my theory is it's different when you're like a contractor. Okay, like you're a military contractor, you're paid to do a job. Okay, that's one thing. But when you're just subsidizing a product, or you're subsidizing something, if your business can't stay in business without my tax dollars, you should go out of business. That's how that should work. Sorry. I mean, it sounds terrible, but no, that's how this should work. We should have never bought out the car companies when they started to fail. That should have never happened. We shouldn't buy out the banks.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Ford should have gone to hell.
Yep.
The amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that's within the SNAP system within itself. Are you aware that every 10 years, the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that's within the SNAP system would pay for the next year had it not actually existed?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's outrageous. Yeah, I mean, and that's in just one system, and the Medicaid system is even worse. I mean, that's the reason everyone's kind of looking at all that. Monica, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Monica.
Hey, so I didn't realize I had my hand up, and then I put it up. So I'm sitting here with the second round of a horrible stomach flu, and I've been watching The Godfather, the trilogy, and I stumbled upon your space because I'm always keeping one eye on you, Walter. But I have. So here's my theory on Waltz, and I'll land the Waltz conversation for me personally with this. I think he's kind of afraido. Like he's just
yeah.
He is. He's afraido. Within the system, right? That's his role. So everyone plays a role. So I have a philosophical question for you guys, Matt, Jay, Walter, Christopher. So for years, Christopher and I have been talking about the fact that we have a little bit of an Arab Spring. I call it the American Spring, that's been running operationally here for years. Like I would say decades. And now it's kind of at a fever pitch, right? And then we know that our enemies work in 100-year cycles. We tend to operate from election cycle to election cycle. The Chinese operate in 100-year cycles. So if you're wanting to take us over, or the Russians, if you actually believe that we're not all in bed together, but if you do believe we actually have international adversaries who want to position us unfavorably, if you look around at of how they've gained a foothold, right, and particularly with narrative warfare and whatnot, and we look at things like BLM, like you guys were just talking about, you kind of laughing about, yeah, haha, who didn't know that we weren't going to find Shaquisha with a whatever her name is, with a giant, millionaire pad. Excuse me, no offense to the Shaquishas in the audience, and I'd love to know how many are here, Walter, after this space, but my question is, so every demographic, right? Well, I've heard the DNC and Act Blue and all these Democrat-leaning devilish schemes, but we all know that our lovely GOP RNC, WinRed, etc., at all, are certainly not without blame in all of this, right? So we do
Yep.
know that Republicans love their cheap labor. Come on. Okay. So my question is, we know that every demographic has their Achilles. Ours has been the shame and the guilt of slavery, which was the thing that enabled the Black Lives Matter movement, that entire fascist disaster, to take hold not only in the United States, but globally. But we really were the stronghold for that an entire movement, and we still are by and large, including but not limited to the church, who bought into that crap as well. And Christopher and I spoke at length about this for years on these spaces about how people were manipulated into this. So here's my philosophical question. If we know that Black America has their Achilles, we know that Jewish America has their Achilles, we know that white America has their Achilles, here in the Democrats as well. Here's my question. What is the Achilles of the Republican?
The Achilles of the Republicans? Inaction. Believing
Yeah.
that everybody is still part of the same system and everyone's going to play by the rules. That's our Achilles heel. We have a whole group of people in the Republican Party, and this is, I've talked about this at length, that we have an entire group of people that simply don't know what time it is. They have no idea. They believe that everything is just normal. You know, we're having a policy debate. No, we're not. We're not having a policy debate. We are not having a policy debate anymore. Okay, the policy debate ended when they started telling us that Steve was allowed to sit naked in the woman's sauna. Okay, the policy debate was over right then. But somehow we still haven't believed that. And now we have people that are literally being assassinated in broad daylight, and they still don't know what time it is. These people are lunatic. They are completely, they live in a world that they don't think things are happening, and they are happening. And they are blinded by this because they still think that America, as they see it, is happening everywhere, and it is not. It is not. And that's the real problem we have. We have people that are blinded by the belief that America is still the America of the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, and it isn't. It's just not the same country anymore.
So
Okay,
you're
and
saying
that's the problem. Yes.
idealism basically has gotten us here. Okay,
Yes.
I would agree with that. I think most Republicans think we're still living in Reagan's America, and we're not. Okay, I don't know if Matt and Jay and Christopher want to chime in, but I'd really be interested in hearing the other answers.
I think that they also, Republicans' Achilles, they don't use the power they're given. They're afraid to use it. I think they want to be the minority. They like to be this, opposition, this controlled opposition. They don't want responsibility for policies because if they, they just don't want the policy. They love to talk a lot when they know that their words are never going to turn into actual action. They sound tough, right? We've seen it for so long. We're tired of it. I also, I don't know. I think that's it for now when it comes to that, Monica. But yeah, I'll leave it there for a second. If anything else comes to me, I'll chime in again.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, if you'd asked that question 10 years ago, you'd have got a different response. But today, what we're seeing is the Republican Party doing the exact same thing that the Democrat Party had done years ago, and that is taking this extreme stance. When I go into spaces and I listen to some very influential people that claim that Trump isn't MAGA anymore, that cannot agree and or define what America first means, that have this concept of isolationism, that they're so, and I hate to say this, no, I don't hate to say this, they're retarded. They think that things that happen outside of the United States of America can't affect us here at home.
Yes.
They think that we're untouchable. They think that China can't affect us. They think that Russia doesn't affect us. They think that Iran cannot affect us. And so if you were to ask me what the Achilles heel currently is of the Republican Party, I'd say it's these retarded online influencers and these so-called journalists, and I'm going to throw them under the bus. I'll throw it out there. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, all of these people that claim to be Christians, Republicans, conservatives, etc. And what they really are is they're a cancer that needs to be cut out. And that's my opinion. I don't speak for Walter. I don't speak for anybody else. It's my opinion.
But Matt, let me ask,
but that is our
ask you this,
Achilles heel.
and thank you for that. Let me ask you this: do you really think they garner that much, or they wield that much power and influence outside of the X ecosystem?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they do, Garnet. And I'll have to agree. You know, my I'm always thinking about the people in Congress that are currently in power that I worry about what their Achilles heel is, which I think is the idealism that I mentioned before. But I do agree with Matt here in that the isolationist people, the people that believe that we can just somehow ignore the rest of the world, that is a very, very stupid mistake because we do have true adversaries that want us dead. And they would be very happy if we retreated from the rest of the world, and they would be more than happy to take us over in any way that they possibly could. So that is true. Go ahead, Chris.
I also would say the difference. I would say it's groupthink and arrogance on in a separation of two worlds. So there's the Republican voter that's going to vote for an R no matter what, because if you looked at the polling, the one person that was hated worse than Barack Obama was Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco values, right? Amongst the average voter, Republican voter. But when it comes to politicians in Washington, D.C., it's a complete divide. It's an arrogance. They know, like they don't even have a shadow of a doubt. They know they're going to get reelected. They love the DC life. Look no further than Dan Crenshaw. And they're going to do whatever it takes to please their masters, to please the swamp, to make sure that they have the high life, because that's addicting, Monica. I mean, you've been around these people. They're friends. Their mansions. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. She gets a property in Costa Rica now. I mean, this is what they go for, and they don't care what the average Republican voter says. And by the way, I would say the other difference is the consultants. Their consultants are advising them to just don't rock the boat. You're going to get elected no matter what Donald Trump does. Just don't rock the boat.
Listen, I was just about to say, so thank you so much for saying that. You're spot on. And I'm in Georgia with Marjorie, God help us, who just abandoned her entire constituency, but that's for another show. So, right. So I picked up on this thing tonight. We've all watched, if you've watched one Godfather, trilogy on Thanksgiving Day, you've watched it 100 times. But for some reason tonight, I picked up on Michael saying, you're not a wartime consigliere. Tom, you're out, right? And so that's us.
Yep.
We do not have wartime GCs. We have these pussified GCs who have completely garnered the market. It's now an industrial complex of just bullshit artistry across the country, as if Marjorie represents the people in Illinois, right?
Yep.
As if, you know what I'm saying? And Walter, you know this better than anybody.
No, listen to me. You're speaking my language, Monica. You are 100% right, and that's what I was talking about before. They don't know what time it is. Okay, there is a difference between the people out here who know what's going on and know that this is a war. We're not in a policy debate. We're in a war with people who want us dead. It's not a joke for some of us out here who have had SWAT teams kick down our fucking doors. It's not a joke for some of us. It's not a joke for some of us who have been run off the road intentionally by people trying to kill you. It's not a joke. I mean, this is a real thing that is happening right now, and some people just do not get it. I mean, I don't know what you can do to convince them of that. You had Trump nearly be assassinated. You had Charlie Kirk being assassinated in broad daylight. They were protesting and bombing fire in Tesla dealerships. What do you need to see? I have no idea. I have no idea what you need to see. And as far as I could tell, they don't have any interest in showing it. Go ahead, Jay. Or go ahead, Matt.
SOCOM had to put out an order, or not an order, but a freaking warning to active duty and retired GBs, letting us know that people are trying to kill us here in the States. That's ridiculous. And for people not to understand how obnoxious that is, that in our own home country, that we think that we can have this isolationist mentality that somehow nobody outside can hurt us. Well, we have to put these warnings out there. You're out of your damn mind.
Yep. Go ahead, Jay, and then it'll be the final word.
Walter, this plays into something you say all the time. How many Republicans in Congress right now think they actually accomplished something in 2024 by getting elected? They think they're the important ones.
Yep.
Not realizing the only reason why they're there is because of one person. Period. Marjorie Taylor Greene has a career because of Donald Trump. Matt Gaetz has a career because of Donald Trump. You can go down the line. So all these people in Congress, they think they're the important one. That no, you're not. You can make yourself that way if you actually understood what this was all about, but you still don't. You still don't. You still don't get it. You still don't get what we voted for. You don't get why somebody who never voted in their life got off the couch for the first time in 2024 and went to the booth and voted. You still don't understand that. And until they understand that, we're kind of in limbo, wondering what's going to happen next.
I agree. Yeah, and it really is reality. The Republican Party believes they're popular, and they're going to find out very quickly that they are not popular at all if they don't deliver on some of these promises. If they don't actually codify some of the stuff from President Trump's orders and President Trump's agenda, they are going to find out very, very quickly. Guys, this is the Political Theater. We are here weeknights, 9 p.m. till about 11:30. Make sure you guys follow all the speakers on my show here. Make sure you guys follow Monica, Matt, Jay, Adam. We had a bunch of great people. Angela Depta was up here with us. A bunch of great people. Make sure you guys check this out. We will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. for more of the Political Theater. Thank you guys for being here, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks, guys.
Some folks are born with a liberty spark. Their hearts beat red, white, and blue. When the anchors sneer and the cameras bark, they turn the lens right back at you. Truth bound, ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're not the party line sons, no, we ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're the vigilant ones, so some folks inherit silk-lined halls, spend our sweat while preaching share. But when the tax man wraps his knuckles raw, their mansions suddenly look bare, impaired. Ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're not their banker-raised hairs, no. Ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're the vigilant ones, so yeah, some paint stars on press room lies and send the common men to toil. Ask them, how much truth will you trade tonight? They mutter, more noise, more noise, more noise. Ain't for sale, ain't for sale. Not the theater's pawns, friend. It ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're America's steadfast one. No, we won't be spun.